across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
And good afternoon. Yes, welcome to the home of common sense. So much to get through here. That Talk exclusive, by the way. I know Julia touched on this, revealing how a group of anti-patriots are operating on Reddit, grouping up to take down flags put up by other Brits. I mean, this is a sort of dictionary definition of madness. These people are fuming. It's a flag! Yeah, it's your country's flag, mate. Can't think of anything less controversial. We'll look at that in a couple of moments, along with a few other things. The Times uncovering a dodgy operation by criminals within the UK that are falsely granting migrants the right to work in the UK through fake job and visa sponsorships. I mean, there's no surprise this is going on. It's just interesting to see it writ large. We'll debate that. And how much would you pay for your pet? As vet bills continue to rise, people are having to take out loans for their furry friends. It's a difficult question. Do you have an upper limit on what you'd pay to save your pooch's life? Details to come. Everything you need to know, all the breaking news right here on Talk. 0344 499 1000. Are we ashamed to be patriotic? There's a couple of stories here that kind of all tie in. What does it mean to be patriotic? Land of hope and glory. What is Britishness? How do you feel, or why do you feel proud to be British? Is it our history, our sense of fair play? Land of opportunity? Is it culture? Shakespeare to the Beatles? Our architecture? All the simple stuff. A stick of seaside rock, fish and chips, and an episode of Only Fools and Horses. What does it mean to you to be patriotic, to be proud, as it were? There are, of course, many people who feel that over the years we've lost our sense of being British. The multicultural experiment has failed and achieved only one thing: to separate and dilute core cultural values of this country. Is that how you feel? In the last couple of years, people have taken things into their own hands to try and address this, of course, and we have seen many occasions where many areas where flags, Union flags, sometimes St George's flags, you might get in other parts of the UK, in Scotland, in Wales, Northern, you might get other flags there as well. They've been raised on lampposts, motorway gantries, outside your house, or planted into the ground on 1,000 roundabouts throughout the UK. There's been a mixed response to that. For some people, it's a sense that Britain is coming home. Finally, people are reclaiming their identity and they're not ashamed to show it. For others, it's a display of nefarious intent and has racist undertones and clear, unpleasant messages to people who don't look like us. Is that really what's going on? Not quite sure what kind of halfwit would see it that way, but the world is a funny place. Now, don't get me wrong, on that specific issue of flags, I do have a certain criteria. I do like my flags neat and even, a synchronised display of loyal uniformity, the kind of thing you see down the Mall, you know, going towards Buckingham Palace. Beautifully clean and ironed displays, flying majestically in an order, placed at perfect height, spaced correctly to create a stunning array of flag-based patriotism. That's how we tend to get some of it sort of sticking wonky flags on motorway bridges or halfway up a filthy lamppost. But regardless, who could be offended by your own flag? Well, it turns out quite a few people, those who mostly represent the idiotic left. There is literally an official group of anti-flag people out there. Can you believe it? We are the anti-flag people. Good day to you. Who is an anti-flag? Who goes, I'm that bored, I'm going to join an anti-flag forum? I'm not kidding. It's a group of weirdo Brits who've launched a coordinated campaign to rip down flags that I've just been talking about over the course of the summer. The flag-hating group, operating via Reddit, has created they've even got a kind of a map, a sort of live map of where the flags are, telling people, get out there, you know, we think there's 7 on Smithfield Avenue, telling people where they might be. Whether it's Union Jack, St George's flags tied to lampposts, telegraph poles. Stockport is one place, allowing them to geographically log and target. And this week, one of the ringleaders of Operation Lower the Colours, they've even got a bloody name for it, asked fellow users to submit details of any remaining flags, insisting they should be removed as well. These people are nuts. They are bonkers. But it does feed in to that kind of, I mean, to be deliberately to be over-patriotic can look a bit daft. You know, if you paint your face in a Union Jack and go to work like that, people might start pointing and asking questions. But to deliberately set out to remove flags is just all shades of bonkers. You know, personally, I don't care about these people. I have no opinion that could be broadcast about these people. But where do you have to be in order to think, I feel that strongly, I've got to make an interactive map so fellow anti-patriots can go out there and remove the flags? 0344 499 1000. That's the number. Your thoughts on this. Are we ashamed to be patriotic in this country? What has happened? What needs to happen? But it does also, just briefly, kind of tie in this with this story. If you ever wondered where this kind of belief in being anti-patriotic comes from, look no further than this man.
This isn't about re-entry to the EU. It's not about going back to the old rules of the single market, the customs union, freedom of movement, etc.
Etc. No, it's not. Sir Keir Starmer sparking fears of a full-blown Brexit betrayal again after declaring Britain could get closer to the EU single market. He said the UK needs closer and stronger relationship with Brussels after Labour ministers openly toyed with the idea of joining the customs union. Signing up to the single market would, of course, axe tariffs, but hand over the kind of rule-making, if you like, back to Brussels, which reopens the door for freedom of movement. You take the point. When asked if he would consider joining the customs union, Sir Keir told Matt Ford, friend of ours, the podcaster, I do think that there are other ways we can get closer to the EU. I actually think the single market would be more effective than the customs union, said Keir Starmer. We're going to talk about Starmer a little later for another reason involving some of our former soldiers, or veterans, as some people might call them. It's just a disturbing story about Keir Starmer's past that has come back to haunt him. But it does rather show you, when it comes to patriotism of this country, this lot, particularly this lot, loads of people in Parliament have the same issues, but this lot have a PhD in it. They don't really care for the UK as an entity. They see us as part of a kind of global jigsaw puzzle, and we're that little bit in the middle that you don't quite know where to fit. You know, it would be the sky or the green grass on a puzzle. That's who we are in their mind. Doesn't matter all that other stuff. The flags, they hate it as well. Starmer would never say it out loud. Thoughts on all of this? 0344 499 1000. Do you think Starmer's going to take us back into the EU? Do you really believe he would do that? Certainly not by 2029, surely. Chloe Dobbs is with us to debate this and all the other big stories of the day. Afternoon to you, Chloe.
Afternoon, Ian.
Nice to see you. Let's start with that flag-hating group. Who'd have thought? I mean, this would have just been satire a couple of years ago. A flag-hating group has emerged. They're operating on Reddit. They've created a live map pinpointing exact locations of flags, initially across Stockport, but they plan to go further in a bid to remove them. Reform MP Sarah Pochin had this to say on Talk this morning.
This is going to cause absolute anarchy. It's going to cause disorder. And if anybody tried to take down my Union Jack flying proudly in my garden, oh my God, bring it on. Because look, the pictures you're showing there, that is exactly what I see in my community in Runcorn and Helsby. People are proudly flying these flags. This is a disgrace. This is, can you imagine in America if people went round taking down their flags? What would happen? Well, we need to have flag police now.
Flag Police. That's surely a new Netflix show waiting to happen, isn't it? Have you seen Flag Police? It's brilliant. Do we need do we need an ice?
You can pitch it to them, Ian.
I'll try. Do we need an ice type setup going around trying to find the people pulling down the flags? It is interesting, isn't it? Because I said at the beginning, I don't know if you heard the top, I've got a kind of mixed view. I want flags to be displayed nicely, firstly. I don't want some ragged old dirty thing stuck halfway up a greasy lamppost. I understand the intent. However, the idea that you would deliberately seek to go around removing the flags is a bit strange, isn't it?
Yeah, and it seems like these are members of the public as opposed to people in the council, local authorities doing it during their paid hours. These are people who, they're such miserable people who've just got nothing better to do but to hate on people who simply want to fly their country's flags.
Yeah.
And when you talk to people from other countries about this, they are just baffled by the fact that it is so controversial to fly your own country's flag. You go to any other country and their flag is everywhere, yet here we hate our own country. And I do think that this is really important, this anti-flag sentiment, because I think it has a big impact on immigration, because in order for us to have a successful immigration system where we end up with people integrating into our culture, loving our country, loving our culture, we have to set the example. If they aren't coming to a country where people are clear and proud about their culture, then you're going to end up with people who don't end up integrating. It's really sad that we've reached a point where we are, I think, one of the best countries in the world, one of the best places in the world to live. I feel I wake up every single day so grateful to have been lucky enough to have been born in a first world country. Yet these people think that their country and its flag is something to be ashamed of.
Well, they are, and I think it feeds into and we're going to talk about the Starmer story later, but Starmer and Lord Hermer and that lot, these are the people behind
terrible
Chagos. Yeah, and of course they were agitating when they were lawyers to kind of chase up soldiers for crimes they hadn't committed and all the rest of it. But it's that thinking. It's that thing, we hate that patriotic, fly the flag, the British Army. Starmer was absolutely ingrained in all of that. And now this other flag-hating group operating on Reddit. By the way, is Reddit the most weird, confusing social media platform ever? You only read it in another thing. You read it in the Daily Mail. It says, she said on Reddit. And no one ever went to Reddit.
I was on Reddit when it first started. When there was no such thing as threads, there was just one main page and you just saw all the rubbish on one page.
Yeah. It's often accused of simultaneously being like the best place and also hell on earth.
It's kind of had this resurgence. I mean, it's always looked like a website designed by a 7-year-old in IT class.
I think that's their point, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's their feel. But anyway, this flag-hating group operate on Reddit.
That's the new
where they are.
dark web
It's the
for
dark web
secret operations.
It's all out there. It's all going on. Let's move to this story. We alluded to this at the beginning as well, and I think it does feed into it because it's important that we know where our political leaders stand in terms of how proud they are of the country they represent. I look at Keir Starmer. I don't believe he's a patriot for 1 second.
No.
I believe he wants to rejoin the EU. I believe he's a man that wouldn't give a toss if the flag of this country was not flying on Downing Street. He wouldn't. It's not in him to care. And we're hearing today, yet again, about closer ties with the EU. And I think every time we hear that, bearing in mind how often this man was weeping and barking in Parliament after the Brexit vote, trying to reverse the darn thing, you have to say, what does he mean? When Keir Starmer says we need closer ties with the EU, I think we should all be worried.
Yes, I think so. But the reality is that the people in Cabinet, they don't understand at all the reasons why people voted to leave the European Union, because it is a cabinet just full of Remainers or Ramonas, as I like to call them. They do not get it. So when they see an opportunity to, for example, completely align with the EU's rules on food and agriculture, and they see, oh, that's going to put a few more coffers into the Treasury and increase the size of the economy slightly if we have this trade deal with Europe, they don't understand that some people might be annoyed that we're then taking all of the EU's rules without having a say at the negotiating table. They don't really understand the democratic principles on which many people voted for Brexit. It just doesn't occur to them. They think, oh, great, we can get a slightly better trade deal, maybe make a bit more money, fantastic. And then slowly but surely they're creeping closer and closer to being part of the EU. They're just looking at numbers on a spreadsheet and thinking about, I mean, with everything at the moment, because the economy is failing so badly, they are desperate to get any extra pound that they can. So, I mean, for example, we've got Keir Starmer out in China at the moment, probably trying to get a bit more foreign investment from them. That has dried up. But we've seen that they've been given a green light on the Chinese embassy, and we've also had stories of them hacking everyone's phones in Number 10. So much evidence of China behaving appallingly, but we're so desperate, so desperate for any trade deal that we can get, be it with the EU or with China, that all morality and principle just goes out the window at the moment. And I think with certainly with Starmer, again, remembering how much he agitated and tried to overturn a democratic vote along with others in Parliament back then. And now he's cancelling elections. Clearly he doesn't care about democracy. Yeah, it's like he likes them, you know, when they suit his kind of bizarre template of reality. But when he's there in Brussels and he's on the stage and he's standing there pressing the flesh with Macron and he feels good.
Scholz, and he loves all of that.
Yeah.
He is more at home.
He said himself that he prefers Davos to Westminster. And I think, I mean, it is quite common that prime ministers prefer the foreign policy side of things to the domestic side of things, i.e. looking after their own country. And one of the main reasons for that, but especially in Keir Starmer's case, because he is now absolutely despised by the British public, is he loves gallivanting on all of these foreign trips. I'm sure he'll have a lovely time in China and Japan, where he is now, because I'm sure he'll be surrounded by people who are warm to him, giving him champagne flutes and canapes. It's the high life.
He might not even come back. He might stay there. I'm waiting for the announcement that he's been made Chancellor of the Exchequer in China or something. That'll be interesting.
God help us, because David Lammy's running the show whilst he's away.
Yeah, come back here. All is forgiven. Chloe, stay with us. Loads more stories still to come. The rising cost of fixing your dog or cat if it's gone a bit manky, if you know what I mean. And, of course, that's a weird story and disturbing story of how migrants are buying fake jobs to stay in the UK illegally. We'll look at that. And the question, are we ashamed these days to be patriotic? 0344 499 1000. Where do you stand on the flag issue? The anti-flag people are out there as we speak, cooking up their weird little plans. Lines are open. You can message 87222. Coming up on 1:20. This is Talk.
Astonishing that this government thinks that they can go kowtow on bended knee begging China for trade, when what will they get? They'll get steel dumped on them, overproduced in China, bad domestic market, batteries, electric cars, arrays, solar arrays, wind farms. They're going to dump all of their overproduced stuff on us, much of it made by slave labor, by the way, and we will turn a blind eye. In fact, Miliband, up until when we managed to stop him recently,
across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
This comes from Jan in Blackburn. It says, Ian, Union Jacks miraculously appeared overnight on the 9 lampposts on our street in time for Remembrance Day. But one, by Christmas Eve, they had all disappeared. I couldn't possibly confirm or deny that plans are afoot to replace them or much higher in the coming weeks, says Jan, who's on manoeuvres in Blackburn. Good luck with it, Jan. And Sean says, afternoon, Ian, I used to be a proud Brit, but not with this pound shop dictator Keir Starmer in charge. He goes against everything that's good about the UK, and by the time this Parliament is over, he will have probably given it all away. And there is that real sense, isn't there, Chloe? When you look at, I say this all the time, you don't have to like Donald Trump. I don't particularly, I think it's a healthy disposition to not like any particular leader. You know, they're leaders, they're there to do the most serious of jobs. I don't want to like them. I don't want to go, yeah, they're great. I don't want that relationship with my leaders. But you can respect what somebody does. And when Trump speaks, love him or hate him, you get that sense he's speaking on behalf of his people. He's good at that. I mean, Boris Johnson was kind of good at it. It turned out to be hopeless, but you take the point. We don't have that with Starmer in any shape or form.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I think that the sad reality is that especially Brits who don't read enough into US politics and they just see the few headlines, they are convinced that everything that Donald Trump says is a lie and that he's, you know, some evil fascist. Like most ordinary Brits that I speak to who aren't super clued up on the news, they are genuinely terrified of the man. Keir Starmer, he's so boring that it's kind of hard to be terrified of him, but he is now starting to get that reputation as an evil man. Although he may not sound evil when he speaks, he just sounds like a bit of a robot. His policies or lack of ability to achieve his policy aims has really annoyed the people of this country, and they're only a year and a half in, and people just don't see any. People like to see light at the end of the tunnel, even if the country's in a bad place. If they can see we're moving on the right trajectory, then that's all you ask. Keeps people going, but people are really struggling to see that, at least until 2029.
What about this story then, Chloe? Again, feeds into all the kind of sense of broken Britain. The Times have uncovered a dodgy operation by criminals within the UK that are falsely granting migrants the right to work in the country through fake jobs and visa sponsorships. The Times posted this video from their investigation. Have a listen.
What we can do is we can give you COS, and company will pay you monthly salaries into your account, and you have to pay back that salary to the different account to the same company.
So there it is. It's a racket, it's illegal, and it's happening.
Yeah, I mean, the Home Office are so easily taken advantage of, it would seem. You've seen it, of course, we've seen this in this investigation, but we've heard many stories before, for example, in the care sector, where a lot of worker visas were handed out, people working for fake care companies that don't even exist, and then they come here and they just get another job. And as you know, if we try to clamp down on certain illegal routes to the UK, these people and these gangs, they are very inventive, and you have got to be absolutely on it, ready to go after whatever the next thing is. And this is one of the next things. They see the price, well, I mean, it's still quite easy to get across on a boat, but the prices keep going up and up. And of course, it's a very treacherous, long journey, not just across the channel, but when people are coming from quite far away and having to take a lot of illegal routes. If they see, oh, actually, I can pay, I think it's 13 grand these people are charging instead, and I can just get a visa and I can get on a plane and go via a safe route, then maybe I'll go for it. But what will happen is if people get these visas and they're technically working for a fake company and they've only got permission to work for that company as opposed to work for any firm, they will then just have to work in the black market because they've got to pay back that salary each month. So I mean, of course, Ian, once we get those digital IDs, it will be impossible for them to do any illegal working.
Well, on this,
of course, I'm joking.
One agent said in this undercover filming, there is no job offering only a certificate of sponsorship for 13,000 plus monthly fees. Now, I don't know quite how they can authenticate it, but someone's being asked to part with 13 grand for the sponsorship. That doesn't mean that, because as you say, when that sponsorship's over, then what does that person do then? They're 13 grand out of pocket. It doesn't mean you're going to stay forever.
So people are paying 13, my understanding, you're paying 13 grand for these guys for their service, and they say in the video it only takes them about 5 minutes to do. So it's a very quick 13 grand.
So are they just producing a piece of paper?
They're just producing a piece of paper and getting 13 grand for it. Easy money. And if they do loads of these every day, I mean, these people are going to be millionaires, these gangsters. And then what they're going to do is they're going to, after they've saved up that 13 grand back home, they've now spent their money, they're going to come here and they're going to work in the black market whilst being paid. They'll be paid by this company and be sending it straight back each month. So if they want any money coming in to meet their living costs, they're going to have to work in the black market.
Of course.
Else they're not going to survive.
Investigators spoke to 26 agents. They logged over 250 fake job examples across 13 Facebook groups, nearing 1 million members. Now that's telling in itself.
Ooh,
so there's a million people that's checking out these iffy, moody schemes, going, oh, maybe there's something in this for me. And then we go, finally, we've got an immigration problem.
The fact that it's all out there on Facebook and these guys are quite happily just freely talking, of course they may not have known there was a camera there, but anyone who comes and asks them about it just shows how they don't think there's really any risk of being caught, because they know that the Home Office are so easy to fool. Nobody comes after them. They're not tough. I mean, in the US, you'd never behave like that, would you?
No.
You know, ICE are coming for you if you did something like that.
Let's look at something that is completely off the beaten track in terms of what we'd normally talk about, but there is a reason behind it. DEFRA are proposing new changes in the way we treat animals in terms of vets and pricing structures and the rest of it. There's been a lot of controversy over this because a report a couple of weeks ago said actually what's happening with a lot of vets, they're owned by these kind of, you know, big, they look like your local vet, but they're actually owned by some big American consortium, and the whole thing is sell, sell, sell. So if your dog goes in there with an iffy paw, you know, just tell the owner it's got leukemia or something, or give them some drugs it might not need, or what. It just keeps selling, upsell, oversell as much as you can.
They love selling you loads of medicines.
I can't work out, if I went to have my arm scanned tomorrow, it would cost about 300 quid. If I wanted my dog's arm or leg scanned,
it's about £1,000.
It's about £1,000.
Yeah.
What's all that about? Surely it must be more or less the same machine.
Yeah, it is very expensive, and I mean, look, I'm of the opinion that it's if you decide to have a pet, that is something that comes with it. But of course, it is important in any market that you have got competition, and we've got the CMA, the Competitive Markets Authority, that have the right, if there is clearly a big monopoly or close to it with an oligopoly, that they can force a company that is, as you say, is a big umbrella company owning loads of vets that look like a local vet, it can force them to split up, and maybe that will happen to bring a bit of competition in the market.
How far do you go? I mean, it's an uncomfortable question. When it comes to, you know, your animal needing treatment, if you haven't got insurance, what do? You go there, you say, look, the dog's got some stuff wrong with it. You know, his little ticker isn't working correctly, there might be some kidney stuff, his little legs are all wobbly, you know, what's up with the beast? And then you just go, it's going to cost you 5,000 quid. You think, well, I haven't got that money. What do you do?
Yeah, it's really sad.
What is the point?
Sometimes vets are quite good if you're... The other thing is even if you've got insurance, you need to pay up front and then make a claim with the insurance, and you'll get the money back about a month later. So you've got to have good savings in the bank, and sometimes they are flexible and say, oh, we'll let you pay in instalments whilst you're waiting for your insurance claim, or if you haven't got insurance. Sometimes they're nice about it, but it can be quite brutal, and I feel so sorry for anyone who's been in a position with it. And it's one thing if the dog is, say, you know, on its last legs already, and you're thinking, oh, do I want it to live for a few months longer or not? And then maybe it's an easier decision. But if you've got a younger dog or cat or whatever, who's
if it's a cat, it doesn't matter, does it? It's a dog that matter.
Who could live a long life, but you just haven't got the money in the bank account. Cats and canaries,
bottom of the food chain, frankly. Dogs and I don't know whether to put rabbits in that list as well. But what point do you say, I'll save the dog?
See, I would save my dog for...
Or is it going to the pet cemetery?
A lot of money if I had a lot of money.
I mean, realistic, it's an uncomfortable conversation. I'd love to know, and you can message us 87222, what is the most you've paid to try and make your animal better? And literally, what do you do if you're in that situation where you go, do I save or do I singe? I don't know where that slogan came from.
I mean,
I don't know which way you would go on that.
I think a lot of people they find losing a pet harder than losing their best friend, for example. I think because your pet is something that you're with every single day, completely intertwined with your nervous system, and then you've got to come home every day and the dog's not there. It's far more heartbreaking for some people than, say, their best friend that they saw, you know, once or twice a month, for example.
Yeah.
So
I mean, I've got a little cockapoo, love her to bits. She's a bit of a nut job, you know. I mean, I would miss her if she wasn't there. But, you know, much like Finn, our producer, I've got a similar relationship with Finn. Apart from Finn doesn't run when I whistle. That's the only difference. I'll give it a go maybe after the show. But, yeah, so they are very special, of course, and they're beautiful and lovely. And I think dogs in particular, it is a relationship that is almost kind of... It's part of us, it's part of them. We're meant to have met dogs to be in our life. Cats don't give a hoot where they live. They don't care for you, don't care for anybody, just give me food.
Yeah, they're quite selfish.
If you don't, I'll scratch your face off.
Got to really fight for their love.
Dirty beasts. Chloe, thank you. Good to see you. We'll take comments on that 87222. You can message us on that number, or call or leave a voice note 0344 499 1000. On more serious matters, are we ashamed to be patriotic? And is Keir Starmer going to take us back into the EU? Genuinely, do you believe that is his bottom drawer plan to take us back to Brussels? Our lines are open. This is Talk.
Across the UK. On DAB+. On YouTube. On your mobile. And on your side. This is Talk.
A couple of stories here, and they're sort of around patriotism, or patriotism, I think I'm supposed to say. There is the interesting one, and don't read too much into this. There's a sort of group of half-wits who have decided to set up a campaign to remove flags, which I just find, just as a kind of conversational human thing, it's just a bit strange, isn't it, that you would deliberately say, I hate my flag. It's just a flag. You know, in its worst form, it's just a flag. But it happens to be your country's flag as well. But these people have got so fed up with seeing flags put up, they're going around taking them down. So there's that. And also, and I think there is a kind of thread here with patriotism. Keir Starmer talks about Britain getting closer to the EU. We constantly keep, I almost feel like we're being drip-fed this narrative so that we can be ready for the big announcement when Keir goes, we're going back. Who knows? Let's speak with Lee Rotherham. Lee is former advisor to the Conservative front bench on the EU and was Director of Special Projects at Vote Leave. Good to see you, Lee.
Good afternoon.
It does feel, doesn't it, that there is this kind of... I mean, we know where Keir Starmer would rather be. I mean, he's made no secret about it. He almost discombobulated in Parliament back in 2016, agitated to change the result. He was talking about legal action and goodness knows what. But every couple of months, there's another story that comes out that Keir Starmer wants closer ties with the EU. What do you read into that?
Well, and also that supports the narrative of those who are pushing it as an inevitability, which it most certainly isn't. Look, there's an internal dynamic within politics. The Labour Party many years ago, used to be much more cynical about the EEC, and then became rather monopolar about it during the Thatcher with the law. And after that, since then, the Eurosceptic wing of the Labour Party has shrunk, which I think is a democratic loss for them. So it's not surprising if you're a party enriched by the traditions of Alistair Campbell, if I can put it in those terms, that you're seeking to prep the public for future policy announcements. And the Labour Party is intrinsically drawn towards the EU because it likes the big people in it like big organisations. It's like many other countries. They like big organisations being part of a big club. Yeah. There's nothing new in that, but it's very short-sighted. It tends to forget what the EU and user or own institutions are like, what its ambitions are, what it does even.
I mean, when you talk about the old Labour Party, I'm thinking of people like Tony Benn and Dennis Skinner, even Jeremy Corbyn, if the truth be known. You know, that kind of like, I don't like, you know, we're not, you know, we wouldn't vote to remain in the EU. What was their prime? Was it about workers' rights?
It's really interesting. It's really interesting if you read Ben's diaries, for instance. I mean, it's about a deep understanding of a couple of things, about democracy and about power. And the view on the left of the Labour Party was fundamentally that the EU was a corporatist agenda. Yeah. So it was about centralising power and about removing power from people who might get in the way, like left-wingers, or for that matter, like Eurosceptics. Yeah. So they understood that. They also, people like Ben, were very steeped into traditions of British working class and early democratic processes, the whole levelers thing. Ben was a massive fan, if that's the right word, of English, 17th, 18th century radical political movement. So he understood what the EU, as it was designed to become, what the threat of that was for English and British democracy. So that's the backdrop, which has been forgotten because, as I say, under Delors, it was a way to get round Thatcher, who was in power in the UK, while forgetting that once you've given it away, you can't get it back. Yeah.
When the whole Brexit vote was happening, I think I believe that was 11 years ago, whatever. The campaigns for and against, and the various arguments, and people had their own reasons, even within the sort of those that wanted to leave the EU. And I always thought
and stay.
And I always thought just the simple point of democracy was the strongest argument. It wasn't always the most seductive one. There were people talked about kind of weird rules and bendy bananas, but of course, as I'm sure you know, there really was a banana directive. That was true.
Yeah. I mean, there were loads of... The great thing... I mean, I did a lot of work with, many years back with Sir Richard Boddy and the Group of 8 Euro-rebels and with the Shadow Foreign Affairs team back then. And the reason why people... these dire ideas, the EU subsequently said, oh, well, these are Euro myths, was because we found out about them at an early drafting stage, got them into the press, and then everybody went, actually, this is a stupid idea, let's not actually push this. And then it became a myth. Yeah. So, you know, you can't win.
But your bananas do have to have a certain curvature.
Well, it's not just bananas. I found one which went out through Evans, the Lancashire MP, David Evans, about Nigel Evans, sorry, about bendy leaks. And now there's an argument to be made, which is fair enough, that in international trade there are certain standards, but you don't over-regulate, and that's always been the problem with the EU. Yeah. In order to it seeks to standardise and not allow leeway at local level. Sure. So it adds on, it gold plates international rules, and then individual countries, and there's Whitehall in particular, would then add another level of, say, silver plate in order to just be compliant with the EU.
These people can't sleep straight unless there's a rule and a regulation. It kind of seems to be almost in the DNA of a certain type of thinking. I always think of Gordon Brown when I think of this. They love a database and a spreadsheet. I mean, they're at home when everything is written down and everything's nicely, neatly connected. And if there's rules and regs, as long as it's their rules and regs, then they're fine with all of that. So in that respect, those who are fascinated by remaining in the EU, that really did play to their kind of core beliefs on things.
Yes, I suppose that's true of some people. I mean, as I say, there are a lot of drivers for people on both sides of the arguments, which completely split political parties. But fundamentally, this is the thing which gets forgotten by those who, like Starmer, are talking about sort of resetting the UK.
Yeah, what does he mean by all of that?
Well, well, we already know what that essentially aligns to, because there's a piece of legislation passed last year, which was the metrology and regulations bill. I forget the exact term, but which allowed for the statutory instruments to align UK legislation with EU legislation in order, ostensibly in order basically to make our product rules match what the EU's was, without having to have a proper debate about it. So that's casual, covert alignment of exactly the sort of thing which the European Scrutiny Committee under Bill Cash used to tear apart. I mean, at one stage, there was such a level of embarrassment in that the European Scrutiny Committee had to briefly sit in camera, in private, in order to stop all these stories coming out. And obviously that didn't last very long, but that level of embarrassment, and we're going to see more of that. Really, look, when Ben Barnier, I don't know if you remember, but when Barnier was having his discussions with his counterparts with the May government, he came up with this stairwell idea of the 4 or 5 types of treaty arrangements. So full EU membership, EEA, EFTA, and all that.
And a bronze, silver, and
actually,
gold.
it's about that was rather duplicitous in my view, because I did some work on this, and I came up with about 50 or 60 different models. Just the higher you get, the more, ranging from right at the bottom, you've got the North Korean style of association, and on the other end you've got basically full EU membership, and in between you've got some which are basically shadowing, and then you go into very close trade deals, weaker trade deals, and so on and so forth. There's a whole massive range there. We don't need to be doing all this stuff about assimilating, being a fax democracy, as and basically taking rules on and just accepting this role. We should be in a position where we are in a free trade agreement, and the countries and the companies and businesses and associations which deal with and export into the EU, they can voluntarily follow the rules for that, and they voluntarily follow the rules for export to the US market, to Australia, to the East Asia.
It's quite simple.
It is quite simple, but no, going to have flipping integrate that into the state's mechanism by signing up to rules that swallow everybody up.
Well, indeed, which is kind of madness, I think, as most people would see.
Very short-sighted.
On the wider issue, just a final point, Lee, we've been talking about sort of patriotism. and this flag thing, and I think it kind of the reason there's a sort of crossover with the EU subject is really what it says about our Prime Minister, I think, and I don't think he's a man that would wave the flag very often. I think his sort of Chagos shenanigans, I think his issues around, you know, how as a lawyer he was pursuing soldiers, and now happier in the EU skin than he is in his domestic one. I think it all kind of feeds into this. You know, he's just not that bloke. Labour as a party today are not that party. He certainly isn't. Much of his front bench, I don't imagine, but they pretend they're, you know, they sing the national anthem. I don't think they care for it very much, to be honest. And of course, as a result, a bit of a pushback to all of that. We had people over the last year or so sticking flags up in all sorts of places. Not always done particularly well. I mean, you know, like I said at the beginning, I like to see a flag placed nicely, like down the Mall. You know, I'm all for a bit of synergy and synchronicity in that respect. However, there's now another group who are going around taking them down, a sort of flag-hating group. So we've got a sort of an anti patriotism going on.
Yeah, well, firstly, I'm always cautious about impugning the patriotism, the assessed patriotism of people, because I'm always reminded of it was Callan who ordered the destroyers and frigates which went down on the task force that Margaret Thatcher sent. So, it's a little bit complicated. Some people have different perceptions of identity, and for some people their identity is partly UK, but it's also partly something else, whether that's a regional identity or a county identity, or in some cases, you know, a supranational identity. I would say, look, this goes back donkey's years if you think about it, because there used to be a time many years ago where we didn't need to fly that flag. You had a flag on the flagpole outside your town hall, and then it was fine. And then I think things probably started changing with the death of Princess Diana, when there was the whole issue about vexillology and not lowering the Union flag over Buckingham Palace, because that wasn't the etiquette, because it was a royal standard. So that muddled the waters a bit. And also particularly when the decision was made to fly the Union flag over the House of Parliament all the time, rather than just when the House was sitting. It was starting at that stage to be a kind of like, what is the flag? Well, we've got to fly the flag a lot more. And then there was a pushback against that, and you started having, rules changed to make it harder for flagpoles to go up for anything other than, well, EU flags in particular, but certain other flags. And you know, it's been quite tidal, this. So I can understand an individual who is annoyed at any flag going up against their wishes, just bombarding their street, whether that's a flag of another country, let's say Palestine or any other country, or a flag of the UK just cluttering their street if it's not been done with council approval. I can see an individual, regardless of which side of the political debate you're on, saying, that's pushing it on me a bit. What strikes me about this group, it seems a little bit too gleeful. It's kind of like going, well, let's push back against these people, without probably, you know, explaining who they think these people are, because these people are just ordinary people who are fed up with the degradation of the pride in the country, and they're taking an opportunity just to express their own pride in the country, not making a political statement, certainly not making an extremist one.
Sure. On that point, Lee, great to see you, sir. Thank you for coming in.
Pleasure. Lee
Rotherham with us on the programme. Lee's former advisor to the Conservative front bench. Thank you to him. Back to your calls in a couple of moments. Nick's in Northampton. We'll talk to you first, Nick. 0344 499 1000.
brand new for 2026. It's going to be the only way to start your day. It's the home of common sense. It's where the nation can come to speak about the day's news. It's the Jeremy Kyle Breakfast Show. You know who you are. You get up, you graft, you work hard. I'm here for you. We want to hear your side. Promise you one thing. It is where the nation can and will come to talk. The Jeremy Kyle Breakfast Show, weekdays from 6 a.m.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
It is Talk, 0344 499 1000. John says, my reason for leaving the EU was too many politicians, and they're all wrangling with each other. Consider the layers of government in Scotland, Westminster, Holyrood, the council. 3 bites at the cherry to dip into our pockets each year with their separate budgets. We need fewer politicians. NME owners have to buy something a bit cheap and nasty, then spend a decade or two trading up to get the home they want. That's what we did, says John. Do you know, we once, thank you, John, for that. We once did, I can't remember what the number we arrived on. We looked at bureaucracy in this country. If you included parish councillors, so parish councillors, town councillors, county councillors, and then you looked at, obviously, Westminster, Holyrood, Senate, all the different places, Upper House, House of Lords, etc. If you added it all, I mean, it was thousands and thousands of people that represent us. And there must be an easier way. I would guess that as we go through the years, AI and all that caper will get it. Nick's in Northampton. What have you got for us, Nick? Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Right. First off, it's Mick, not Nick.
Oh, it's Mick, says Nick here. Anyway, Mick, nice to have you with us.
Right. Yeah, it's about patriotism.
Yeah.
I mean, my old man, before he passed away, he did 25 years in the army. I grew up on countless amounts of army barracks throughout the world.
Yep.
So when it comes to patriotism, you won't get anyone who's more patriotic. But I win the lottery, I am out of it.
Where are you going, Mick? Where are you going to go to?
Texas.
Texas? Okay.
Yeah.
Not the DIY shop. I mean, actually to Texas. Okay. So what? Yeah. Why Texas? Any reason you want to be a cowboy or what? What's happening? Recreate Dallas?
I would just buy somewhere in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah.
And I could just see out my days there. Because I honestly believe 5 to 10 years, the UK will already be given up to the Islamic State.
In 5 to 10, the Islamic State?
Yeah, it's already happening in certain. It's already happening in certain parts of the country anyway.
How do you mean? In what way?
Well, take Birmingham, for instance.
Yeah.
The Villa supporters.
Oh, yes. No, I agree there are assimilation problems, and all of those councillors that were speaking kind of from an Islamic perspective, this is our territory, you know, shut up. Your voice is not required. You're in the United Kingdom. I don't care what colour you are, what faith you are, but it's not your territory. It's not for you to put up signs saying this group are not welcome, etc. We have issues around there. I totally agree. But I think, you know, if in 5 years' time you think we're going to be run by ISIS...
Yes, because, let's be honest, the rape gangs, they were all like Islamists, right? They were covered up by police. They were covered up by civil servants. So they were being told by the Islamists what to do. So you tell me I am totally wrong.
Well, you're not wrong on some of the obvious demonstrable facts around the fact that authorities didn't react when things were reported. That is true. On scale and relevance of where that sits within our kind of system, I would like to think, because it's too scary to think otherwise, Mick, that we're not about to be taken over by ISIS, because that really would be something else, wouldn't it? But anyway, I hear what you're saying. You're getting out of it. Good luck in Texas, by the way. Maybe you can phone us when you're over there from one of your oil wells. That is Mick in Northampton. This is Michael in Birmingham. On the EU-related point, Michael, good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon. I thought I was going to be controversial, but I don't think I am now. What I was going to say was, it's not a million miles away. What I was going to say is that I respect people like your previous guest, right? Very intelligent people.
Yeah.
But frankly, I think they've overanalyzed the Leave vote. I'm a Leave voter, and you know what made me want to vote for Leave?
Go on.
Free movement. I wanted it ended.
Yeah.
I wasn't that bothered about the economic niceties. Couldn't care less. And I wasn't even that bothered about when the EU and a little bit of free movement.
Why did you want free movement to stop? Because many people now look at immigration and they go, actually, the EU immigration wasn't a problem. That was fine. It's the other immigration that's the problem.
I think you'll find that there's a view up until I think it was Maastricht or till Blair expanded it to the other EU member states. It was fine, but okay, I'll say something controversial. I used to live in London, right? And when he allowed people in, I used to go to my GP surgery. Everybody was speaking an East European language except me. And like in red wall seats, it's the low-paid work that was being overtaken by certainly the East European side of things.
Yeah.
People can take that as they want, but I make no apology for
But don't you think, in a weird way now, and I'm not defending or attacking the point, Michael, but in a weird way now, bumping into a Polish plumber or builder doesn't any longer seem that odd?
It doesn't seem unusual, but what does seem odd still, Ian, and again, forgive me, I'm not lecturing you, so I'm not turning it round the way back.
No, I get it.
You walk around streets in relatively ordinary areas, and well, you think you're in Poland or somewhere else, and it's not just about those people in particular. But let's get it right. And the reason why Starmer wants to go back into the EU, which he always does, and the globalists do, forget the economic niceties.
Yep.
I was actually on side with that. I used to quite like the economic side. I used to like to be able to travel to the EU on my holes with my passport. That was great.
Yeah.
But the people living there was the wrong thing. And to the Starmers of this world, forget the economics. It's just another way to open borders.
Yeah, well, that would 100%. That would obviously be the upshot, and that I think would be his ideal kind of dream scenario. Michael, thank you, mate. I've got to move because we're about to hit the clock, and I need to get another caller in. This will be Mike in Swindon. We've had three. Is that three Mikes we've had on the chart? A Mick, a Mike, and a Michael. Yeah, Mike, how you doing?
I'm fine, my friend. How are you?
Good as gold, thank you. Tell us about your vet's bill.
Right, my dog's got a thing called Addison's disease. It's basically its adrenal glands have been destroyed. So he's got that for the rest of his life, and he has to have the treatment for the rest of his life, which is a prescriptive drug. Now then, by law, they got this nicely done. Prescription is only valid for 6 months. So I've got to get a prescription every 6 months from the vet. That's cheap, as in £25 a time.
Yeah.
But I can't have a prescription unless they check the dog over.
Which is another payment.
That's £50 a time.
Yeah.
And when they did the check over, all they did last time was looked at his heart, listened to his heart, checked his teeth and weighed him. And I said, well, what's that got to do with the prescription? Because the prescription is to balance his bloods. His bloods have to be checked.
Yeah, I would argue that is not a check over in the context you're talking about.
Well, that's £50 a time. And these vets have got it all sewn up. They will not issue a prescription without a check over.
But the check over is not worth a thing, is it? I mean, weighing a dog, I could weigh a dog. I'd do it for 30 quid.
Oh, thanks.
I mean, I've got some scales at home, they're pretty good. I mean, you're right. I mean, a check over would, you'd think, if you're paying 50 quid, include a blood test as well. So they trouser an extra 50 quid out of you each time you go.
Plus another £25 for the blood test.
Right, and then the...
So that comes to £75.
Yeah.
Now then, the drug that I order, I can get it for £40 cheaper online.
Right.
Sorry, not £40, 40% cheaper.
Wow, significant.
So I have to get the certificate from the vet, then I have to go to online. So to cut a long story short, that's the dog's for the rest of its life. It's always got to have the prescription. It can't have the prescription without a check. To make matters worse, I came across an American vet who said he'd got this from the British Veterinary Association. Flea treatments, these nice, expensive, all singing, all dancing flea treatments, there's a chance it could be causing cancer and autoimmune disease.
Oh, my God. Well, we'd hope not, and of course we would advise anyone, if they're checking out that kind of stuff, to seek their own advice from vets and other sources if they have to. Mike, thank you very much indeed. You do rather highlight what is a bit of a swizz in the old vet department. More calls on that on the way. The EU patriotism, it's all there. 0344 499 1000.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Afternoon, yeah, welcome back. It is the Afternoon Empire. It is the home of common sense. It is the afternoon show. Loads together. We are talking, of course, that Talk exclusive, revealing how a group of anti-patriots are actively operating, taking down flags that the more patriotic people had put up. Sometimes just months ago. They've got a little map, they've got a little plan, they've got advice. Get out there, anti-flag people, and rip down them Union flags. What the heck's that all about? Are we ashamed to be patriotic now? What's going on? Lines are open on that. We'll take your calls. Also this afternoon, The Times has uncovered a dodgy operation by criminals within the UK that are falsely granting migrants the right to work in the country through fake jobs and fake visa sponsorships. This is an almighty, almost mafia-like offence going on there. We'll bring you the finer details of what is actually happening. And as we've been discussing, how much would you pay for your pet? As vet bills continue to rise, people are being asked to take out loans for their furry friends. Some can't afford to attend to them at all. It's a strange area when making your pet better is more costly than making yourself better or somebody in your family. 0344 499 1000. How can a pet scan cost more than a human scan? I just don't understand that. And we know there are certainly suggestions that some vets are happy to kind of really inflate the price, or certainly inflate the treatment your beast might need. Somebody here says, Ian Collins, your putting down of cats in your comments was disgusting. Some people love dogs, some people love cats, some love rabbits, some love all pets. To put cats down your comments were disgusting. But I wasn't literally, I was suggesting that on the pecking order, OK, your cat is a bit of a manky bit of kit, isn't it? Whereas your dog, I mean, that's the regal beast, the majestic, fine hound that it is. It's top of the league. Your dog is kind of, you know, it's Man City, it's Arsenal, it's Chelsea. That's your dog. Your cat is sort of West Ham United, Leeds at best, possibly Wolves. You take the point. 0344 499 1000. But it is an expensive process. And how much do you, I mean, quite literally serious and slightly uncomfortable question. How much do you pay? You know, if they said, yeah, we can fix your dog, it's going to cost £10,000. Where do you go with that? And if you haven't got insurance, what the heck do you do? Now, the Daily Telegraph has revealed how Keir Starmer led a legal case that opened the door to hundreds of British veterans being pursued for war crimes. Keir Starmer worked for free to do this. This is back in 2007. The man literally led a witch hunt against Iraq veterans. Here's one of those accused. Let's hear from Sergeant Richie Catterall.
Do you feel like Keir Starmer has betrayed you?
Yes, he has. They sent us to Iraq, they sent us to Afghanistan, and then they're saying, you shouldn't do that. He's literally going for troops that are doing the job.
Yeah.
Literally.
Let's get to work with Major General Tim Cross, CBE, retired Army officer and military logistics expert. Tim, good afternoon to you. You had an incredibly impressive career in your time in the military, particularly in Iraq as well. You will understand, and I know you have skin in the game, as it were. However, I think any decent human would look at this story and think, what is it about lawyers that feel what appears to be almost like the never-ending itch? It's kind of perpetual in the minds of some of these people who perhaps come at it from a political angle, but they seem hell-bent on chasing down innocent men and women who fought for their country, have done nothing wrong, often already been through the legal process a couple of times, but they can't stop themselves. There's an insatiable appetite to chase service personnel. What's going on here? Good afternoon.
Hi, good afternoon to you. Yeah, I don't know, it's difficult, isn't it, when you see these stories to get, behind the headlines and try and find out the reality of what's going on. Funnily enough, I was at Exeter University on Friday in a debate that all the members of the armed forces were heroes. And it was a very interesting debate, and it was a very narrow vote, actually. And I think it's a reflection of people's disquiet sometimes over what they hear about what's happening in some of these cases. Now, nobody for a moment wants to defend anybody who has performed illegally, broken the laws of armed conflict, broken the Geneva Conventions, etc., on operations. It is rare. It is, in my experience, and I've served in Northern Ireland, the Balkans 3 times, Iraq a couple of times, and elsewhere, and I've never come across this, seen it from a personal point of view. But there have undoubtedly been people who have not done the right thing on operations, and nobody's saying for 1 minute that they shouldn't be investigated.
Of course. The
problem here is that you have, and I was involved with Shiner, who's referred to in this story.
Yes, they're now disgraced.
Now disgraced. And in fact, I did a news, an interview with the BBC on their Newsnight programme, in which I was given a really hard time over the fact that Shiner was this great hero, unveiling all sorts of terrible things, etc., etc., and I was, pushing back against it. And of course, subsequently, when he was found to be the man that he was, nobody bothers to apologise afterwards. No. They just, move on. So the bottom line here is, the trouble is, it undermines the trust within. And I noticed actually on that article in the Telegraph, 5,500 comments, which is quite unusual actually in any article in the paper. And the vast majority of them were really just displaying disquiet. They're saying it's, who's got the backs of our soldiers and operations? Who's looking after us? When we are surrounded by the media, we're surrounded by legality, and what they call lawfare.
That's right.
Moving into to find compensation for victims, etc., etc. I don't want to dismiss this. It's not an easy balance, but on balance, I think this is very unsettling. It does worry me about undermining trust. And actually, from a Prime Minister point of view, I never quite know where Keir Starmer sits with our military.
Yes, I share that sense, and just to corroborate really what you said about, obviously, bad apples, that phrase, there's going to be some, like there is anywhere in the military. None of us have any problem, particularly those within it themselves, like your own career, etc., in identifying the bad ones. And similarly, I would also say, Tim, I don't have a problem with human rights lawyers. It is a job. It always reminds me when lawyers are perhaps, batting from different parts of the spectrum, that we live in a democracy. Thank goodness we have people who can study and follow things. What I find interesting about these guys, and you mentioned Shiner as an example, who's no longer the man of the moment, but Starmer, Lord Hermer, these guys practice together. He's now the Attorney General. It is the almost pathological addiction they have to pursuing these cases. It's not like it appears to be such a different area of law where you might pursue something, you might be the defence, you put your case forward, you win it or you lose it. These guys, when they lose it, they go again. They seem to go again. They can't put it down like a rabid dog. They continue, and that to me suggests something else. And when one of those people who can't let it go then goes on to become our Prime Minister, I think that raises, not unreasonably, questions about as you just suggested, what our own PM actually thinks of our own military.
Yeah, I just pick up the first of those points. It is the guy you interviewed earlier was investigated 3 times. Some of the Northern Ireland veterans have been around this boy on even more occasions than that. And actually, the news this morning is that some of these charges that were being levelled against them are not going to happen. They're going to be dropped. But that means these guys have been living. I was in Northern Ireland in the 70s. These guys have been living with this over them for the last 30, 40, 50, 60 years.
Sure.
And, the impact on them emotionally, the impact on their families. Anybody who normally commits crime is investigated, goes to trial if necessary, and is either found guilty or not guilty, and that's the end of it.
Yeah.
This doesn't seem to happen in our world, and I don't understand why. And picking up on the Prime Minister, I don't want to give him a hard time in inverted commas at the end of the day. But he does talk on the one hand about British soldiers being heroes, pushing back against President Trump, etc. On the other hand, when he talks about defence, he talks a good talk, but actually in terms of commitment and putting money and resources into rebuilding our defences, very little evidence of that. And I've met people who've said to me afterwards that they're just not convinced that he really feels very strongly about the British military.
Yeah, I sense that too. I don't think it's not really in his DNA, is it?
It doesn't seem to be. It doesn't seem to be, and I think that's a shame. Now, I have to say I've got a lot of time for the Defence Secretary, and there are some very good people in Parliament who served. This conversation is not unimportant because I think it raises the issue and it makes people think about how do we treat our military. And if the government and the Prime Minister and the Cabinet send soldiers, sailors and airmen into operations where they put their lives at risk, then these soldiers, sailors and airmen need to know that these guys have got their back. And it's very disquieting. So it's a really important issue.
Absolutely right. Tim, great to have you on, sir. Thank you very much indeed for your time. Major General Tim Cross, CB, retired Army officer, military logistics expert. I think it does matter. I genuinely think it does matter. If our own Prime Minister, nothing wrong with the fact that he used to be a lawyer, apart from the fact there are so many of the used to be lawyers in Parliament, but that's fine, that's legit. He was a human rights lawyer, that is fine. But he was also a man that he worked for free. He was an agitating voice in that sphere of wanting to not just prosecute people for what they considered, him and Lord Hermer and others, war crimes, but when they were found that there was no case to answer, they went again. And they couldn't stop. Now, if that bloke then goes on to become our Prime Minister, I think that's quite telling him about his personality. Now, we're not talking about an opinion he had when he was 17 or, a left-wing agitator back in the uni days or whatever. That'd make sense. This was his career, his profession, his chosen area to focus on and major in was this. And he worked for nothing. And that was just less than 20 years ago. The man that now stands there in number 10 in charge of our military was prosecuting our military with a certain rapid rate of knots, I think we can fairly say. Let's go to Tim in Surrey. Good afternoon to you, Tim. What are your thoughts? Hi.
Good afternoon. Well, you've covered every point I was going to make. There was one, I find it very deeply disturbing, though, that the current head of the armed forces, effectively, was engaged at some point in prosecuting that same group. And what's even more worrying is that he chose to do that. In other words, he wasn't, forced by the taxi rank.
Yes, it wasn't that. You're right. It didn't just come his way and he had no choice. He did it for free.
He did it for free, so he had a choice. And like your previous caller, I find it deeply disturbing. Plus the fact that we now have new legislation which reverses the legislation under the Tories, which will make or give potential to existing veterans to be prosecuted again. How can that be right from our Prime Minister?
Where do we go with this, though? Could he, Prime Ministers often say, but when...
conflicted.
Well, that's true, but a good Prime Minister is meant to be able to... Because I suppose if you wanted to really kind of rip into this argument, you'd have to say, you'd have to look at every opinion a Prime Minister had recently. Their job is to park some of that at the door and govern objectively. But with something like this, could we really trust them?
Well, I agree with the govern objectively, but this is very close to the bone, isn't it? He is making legislation that affects the same people that openly prosecuted.
Well, I don't know where it goes for Keir Starmer, but if you asked him what he thinks of our military, he would say, I'm very proud of them. I love them. I back the boys.
Well, yes, he's required to do that, but I wonder if this were known or had been in the public domain prior to July last year, or the year before, whenever the last election was, I lost track of time, 24, I wonder whether that would have influenced a certain number of electors. Because
I think there would be people. There would be people. If people, bother to look into these stories, I think it would influence some, particularly those who had served, of course. Tim, thank you. Great call. And it's reflected by a lot of views coming in. Joanna says, sometimes I can't decide if Starmer is trying to break out resolve to make us beg to get back into the EU, or is he a Marxist communist plan to tie us to China? Either way, it feels like a destruction of family and community bonds, destroying social institutions like pubs and making everyone dependent on the state for everything, them being controlled and watched. Yeah, and the trouble is with the kind of that sort of era, there's, like right-wing thinking, and there's not one type of right-wing thinking, there's not one type of left-wing thinking. The structures, and there's eras as well, but the kind of Starmer sort of era, which does tie in with the kind of Lammy, even back to Gordon Brown, it's kind of all cut from a very similar cloth, and that's a really good point in terms of what they see. We talk about the British pub, we talk about the British flag, we talk about patriot. That lot just don't, it's kind of removed from them. It's just not there. And that's fine, except for the fact they're running the country. Therefore, it's not fine. Carl is in Liverpool on the flag issue. What do you got, Carl? Hi.
Good afternoon, Ian.
Hiya.
Yeah, I'm a veteran, so, I'm proud. I have a flag flying outside my house. These people, Ian, they are just morons. And if they don't like the look of the flag, then they're in the wrong country and we should leave. We're proud of it. We should be proud of it. This country's achieved a lot in its history, Nothing to be ashamed of. History is part of our past, and we should only be looking forward to the future and not concentrating on what happened in the past. But these people, they need to just, as you say, get in the bin. It's just enough's enough, to be honest, Ian, don't you think? I think it's gone too far. With why shouldn't we be proud to fly this flag? But veterans of old and new have died.
Yes, we've got veterans being pursued. Flying a flag is controversial. The Prime Minister is in China. His government want closer ties with the EU. You put all that together and you think this is a bit of a weird place. How did we arrive here?
Yeah, I think, and another thing as well with that thing coming out about Keir Starmer and his friend giving their services for free to go after veterans of the Afghanistan war. I just this man, Ian, he just can't. I mean, I thought he could sink low, but not as low as what he has done in the last few weeks and days. You know, it's really, really, he has.
He's a curious lad, isn't he?
You know, the thing is, Ian, this is the thing. This is a man that is leading our country, and left, right and centre, we are getting battered for flying our flags, our veterans, how we eat, our churches, our culture, our history, our way of life. Crime's up, rape's up, everything's up. And yet, if we mention it, we are racist, fascist, scumbags. These people on the left, they need to understand that if this country was to be taken over by Islam, these people that are doing the protesting, they would be, they would be put on a low light there. These people, they think everyone is an infidel apart from them. And we go around singing from the same hymn book and saying free Palestine.
Which kind of strange, isn't it? Yeah, they'd be given nothing in a new world order in that respect. You're bang on, Carl. Thank you very much indeed for that. Just a couple of points on the ridiculous cost of vet bills, which has just gone off the scale. Nobody can ever quite work out or quantify it. Fiona says we spent £10,000 on our dog for diabetes, cancer and cataracts, to name a few. Insurance is necessary. If they scrap VAT on vet fees and medications, that would help reduce the cost. Scandalous that VAT is charged in the first place. I didn't really realise that. That is pretty grim stuff. And one from Matt, who says, my cat got run over and the vet quoted £8,000 for the surgery. When I said my insurance only covered £5,000 and I will have to therefore put her down, he said he would do the operation for £5,000. Do you think it was a goodwill gesture, or rather a case that they didn't want to lose 5,000 quid? I think it's probably... Well, I don't know whether it was a case of they ever wanted to put the cat down. I'd hope the vet didn't. But it just shows you how inflated the original price was. I don't know what the operation required for Matt's cat was, but how did they arrive at 8,000? How long was it going to take? It wasn't going to take more than a day, right? Like one would assume it could be several hours. So if it's £5,000, if it's £8,000, that's just the time, isn't it? It's the vet's time. If Matt hadn't gone in with his cat that day, he might just be giving a routine weigh-in to a chihuahua or checking out the beak problems of a budgie. I don't know, but probably wouldn't have been getting... So the 8,000 quid is kind of a non-figure to begin with, other than just, well, I think I can get it because it's your cat or your dog. Thank you, Matt, for that. 0344 499 1000. More of your calls on the way. 2:20 This is Talk.
You can't try and snipe at the Conservatives for things that weren't our fault.
Oh, I mean, I haven't got time. Don't tell your big mate Donald Trump to tell his big mate Vladimir Putin to stop killing people, then we can solve that problem like that.
Won't be surprised to know I disagree.
Why? Why do you disagree, though? Why do you want our young people left on the scrap heap? The court's time being wasted laying down a ruling on what is a woman. You and I have been speaking for far too many years about
And
this.
actually, you know, I'm very grateful to you too, because you have always covered this topic.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
It is funny what you do for animals, isn't it? For your pets. Trevor says, we spent our entire holiday fund for cancer treatment for our beloved cat Max. He sadly died halfway through the treatment. On hindsight, we're still wondering, were we really trying to save him or us from the pain? I don't think we'll ever know. I mean, there is... Yeah, that's a great point. There is a whole thing, isn't there, about... It's quite a dark area, isn't it? About mourning in general, whether it's for humans, that it's actually quite a selfish disposition. Now, of course, you can mourn for different... Well, you know, if somebody loses their life accidentally and they're way too young to die and all the rest of it, there's an obvious tragedy that is just objectively very sad, devastating. But if... You know, when somebody's like, they take 28 weeks off work because their great-great-great-great-nan died, who's 157, as if she was meant to carry on living. And I just think, no, you're not allowed that. Sorry. No, that's not good enough. You're going to miss her, miss the old girl. I understand that. You can't take that amount. That's just crazy. So what we do, we miss the person, don't we? We miss the person. That's the bit we're kind of crying for, much of the time. But, you know, clearly you are devastated at the loss of... Then you're often sad for other people's loss, even though you're sad yourself. You know, if a nan dies, you're sad that it's either your mother or your in-law, but then you're sad for the kids who've lost their nan. You know, there's all of that kind of stuff going on. But the reason I mentioned that is, as Trevor pointed out, same with pets. Is it our pain when they go? The one thing we do know is that they cost a lot of money, and that's just been articulated by many of you this afternoon. Lots of comments on that. And one from Sally says, one of the reasons scans can be expensive for animals is because they usually have to be anaesthetised for that process. That can obviously add quite a lot to the cost. Says, yeah, that does make sense. Although, what does it cost in the 21st? Surely anaesthetising a cat, I mean... It's not like the Victorian days where we just discovered anaesthetic, right? I mean, that stuff must be like paracetamol. Surely. Roy is in Hampshire. Back to patriotism. Roy, what are you thinking? Hello.
Well, it's just when I was in the army, mate, if you walk past the old barrack square,
yeah,
the flag was raised at Reveille and it was taken down at Reveille in the evening. And when you marched past or you walked past, you had to salute that flag.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's our flag. And another thing, mate, I wanted to talk about.
Yeah, go on.
Is, you know, the Tory party, they reckon there's so many parties within the party. Do you think other parties put plants into different parties?
Plants?
Yeah. Like somebody who's a right lefty or, you know, a Labour supporter. So here, we get him elected as a Tory MP. You know, and then
I mean, it's quite a lot of hurdles you'd have to jump and be quite convincing along the way, I suppose, but it's not impossible.
Yeah, but they do, you know. If we go back to the trade unions and factories, they get a guy in there who's a right lefty. You know, we still have a car industry. If it hadn't been for Red Robbie years ago, they were always out on strike. Yeah. It was like the Prince, you know, every year they were out on strike.
Red Rob. We ended up doing a sort of an inverted kind of texting about that a couple of weeks back.
Yeah. But another thing, mate, it'll never happen, but wouldn't it be wonderful while Starmer's out in China, we send the troops into Downing Street, that's a lot of them, cancel Parliament for at least 6 months, get a coalition in there to run the country for 6 months, and then we can have another election. That's what wants to happen, because this guy is a traitor, mate.
Yeah, a lot of people feeling that, Roy. Thank you very much indeed for that. Why is there a sense that... And I know we live in different times to even 5 years ago. I mean, even 5 years ago, in terms of how we dissect stuff and get animated about things, and social media plays a massive part, the internet, we're all more aware, more stuff to watch, etc. But that word traitor, you didn't really hear it bandied around quite so much with other leaders in the same way you do with Starmer. Rodney says, after hearing a colleague at work complaining that it cost £120 to get a dog castrated, I was shocked at the price. As a small farmer, I paid £90 to have 6 bulls castrated. That was 15 quid each. When you say each, is that each bull or each testicle? I don't know. Pet vets... You don't want to get your thumbs caught in the bricks either when you do it. Pets vets are a rip-off, says Rodney. Yeah, there is a big problem there. And if you're a farm vet, I mean, that's a whole different ball game, isn't it? I mean, is that a far more, if you're dealing with horses and cows and God knows what else, I'd imagine that's a much trickier affair. Bob is in Ludlow. On the flags, Bob, what have you got for us? Hi.
Afternoon, mate. As you're aware, I'm a veteran and an ex-copper. These people that are going round taking down the flags that think they're achieving some sort of idiotic ideal or whatever, these people are the worst sort of people to have in the country.
Well, they're kind of ill, aren't they? I mean, there's something wrong with them. And I don't say that glibly. I genuinely think they have something wrong with them.
Yeah, these people would do nothing to defend this country in any way, shape or form if it came to it. They would, if we were invaded and taken over, God forbid, by another power such as China or whatever, these are the sort of people that would be first in the queue to dob on their neighbours, etc., and join the equivalent of the SS or whatever.
Yeah. Well, you'd hope they wouldn't do that, but
no, they would. I mean,
but you're right. You're right in the kind of people we're talking about here.
Yeah, they seem to have some sort of weird ideology, and as for having an ideology that is counter to the patriotism of actually flying our own flag, I would say to them, if you're so tied up in
Yeah, got it. Well, I hear what you're saying, and to be honest, Bob, you're not the only one that has strong feelings on that, and I think we could probably fill a switchboard with exactly that view. Thank you, Bob in Ludlow. This one in from Paul, who says, you're lucky all the cat lovers are out taking the flags down, otherwise your phone would be on fire right now. I think you would probably find, I think there is, this is maybe more controversial than the original cat comment. I don't know what you think about this, Finn and others. I think lefties like cats. I think, and they don't like dogs very much. I think left-wingers are cat people, predominantly. Not all, there's always exceptions to the rule, but predominantly your cats are socialists, all right, I've come out and said it, all right? Cats love all of that. Chairman Meow and all that. Cats are reds. But yeah, I think more lefties like cats. And cats do become the preferred preferred animal of choice. I'm staggered by how many people live on their own, even into older years, and choose cats over dogs. I don't know what that correlation is. I know it's easier to stick one on your lap and stroke it while you're watching TV and all that business. Maybe they're easier to look after when it comes to, being out the house for longer periods. I don't know. But I definitely think that cats appear in two parts of the human story. One is when women get to a certain age and have inexplicable long grey hair and lots of cats. What's that all about? And secondly, I'm stereotyping. And secondly, lefties like a cat over a dog any day of the week. Any reason behind that? 0344 499 1000. Talk about a mixture of subjects here. We're talking patriotism, we're talking Keir Starmer and Europe, people taking flags down, not putting them up, the cost of getting an animal sorted at the vets is off the scale. How much is too much when it comes to paying out to save the life of your cat or dog? Bunny rabbit even. I mean, people would have a different view, wouldn't they, of their rabbit to their dog or their cat? I think so. I mean, I love a bunny, but, you know, £5 to save a bunny's tail? Really? 0344 499 1000. Message 87222. This is Talk.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
This is Talk. 0344 499 1000. Brad says we currently have 3 rescue dogs and the vet's bills are huge. Rescues often need teeth removed. Even that is expensive. One bill last year, she had breathed a small bone fragment up her nose, was just under £4,000. We do have insurance, but 250 quid excess and other deductions soon mount up. I mean, that's absolutely extraordinary, isn't it? It's always in the thousands. And you could nip down to a private clinic yourself and have your pelvis scanned and a full blood test for far less than that. I mean, far less than that. Clearly reasons why vets charge much more. Let's move to this story, which we mentioned a little moment ago. The Times newspaper has uncovered a dodgy operation by criminals within the UK that are falsely granting migrants the right to work in the country through fake jobs and visa sponsorships. The Times posted this video that comes from their investigation. Have a listen.
What we can do is we can give you COS and company will pay you monthly salaries into your account, and you have to pay back that salary to the different account of the same company.
Yeah, a lot to get into there. Let's speak with Mark Littlewood, Director of Popular Conservatism. Mark, good afternoon to you. Something about this story, great journalism, good to have it uncovered, great to see it. There it is on video, caught red-handed. But for some reason, it doesn't actually surprise me.
You're quite right, Ian, aren't you? I mean, it is a good piece of journalism by the Times, but it's yet more evidence that our system is broken and unbelievably easy to get around, right? If all you need is a certificate of sponsorship in order to be able to remain in Britain, and eventually, perhaps after a number of years, to actually then qualify for British citizenship, surprise, surprise, the black market will be providing them. So this gives the impression to the enforcement agencies that you're in gainful employment when you're not. God only knows what you're actually getting up to, probably something in the black market economy. So yet more evidence that the immigration system is completely broken. We need clearer, stricter, but also simpler rules, I think, to deal with this. I mean, my suggestion on this is, rather than having you need a job that has a certain salary in order to qualify to remain in Britain, what we should say is that you need to be a contributor to government services. And if you were to divide total UK government spending, Ian, amongst the entire population, it comes in at about £17,000 per person per year.
Yep.
That should be the cost, basically, by and large, for a visa to work here. Then you wouldn't have all of these scams and schemes to issue you a certificate as a workaround. We want to see your readies. We want to see the colour of your money. You need to be paying that into the government. Otherwise, no visa, no stay.
Yeah, completely reasonable stuff. I would imagine as well, when it comes to sort of moody and iffy documentation, that world is probably getting much easier. You know, I'm thinking about AI and the capability of sort of printing and the sort of things you can do. There's very complex computing systems that will even lob a watermark into some things that would have looked impossible a couple of years ago. So there's a sort of cat and mouse game being played there with iffy documentation.
No doubt about it. I mean, it's an easy workaround. I mean, if you're caught, there are obviously penalties. It's a criminal activity, but it seems quite easy to do. So, you know, as I say, props to the Times for exposing it. I hope that the chap they've caught on camera is tracked down and properly punished for it. But I think you've really got to move to a system that is in some way or another based on money and based on transactions, not based on documentation. Because, as you rightly say, documentation's always been quite easy to fake, but easier and easier. You just need a printer, a couple of software programs, and you can knock off any sort of documentation that you want. So let's actually let's move to a situation where if you want to come here and want to work, and we want people to come to Britain and work, there's a fee attached. You pay for it. And if your money doesn't clear His Majesty's government's bank account, you're not entitled to stay. That's very hard to fake, right? It's
It is, and a very simple solution. I would have thought. It just sort of feeds into this story as well, Mark. While you're with us, just a word, if you could, on this again. Nothing surprises us. More migrants arrive in the UK that have been kicked out under this sort of shambolic one-in, one-out scheme. So. Which means no one has really been deported here at all. These are the people that are allowed back in, agreed by France, after we've kicked people out. Well, 350 migrants have come in, 281 have been returned. So we're getting more people come in than we kick out. This is the definition of madness, Mark.
Absolute madness, Ian. And so it's not one in, one out, is it? We're still gaining. But, the policy, even if it was working as designed and as intended and as the name suggests, doesn't touch the sides, right? Even if it was one in, one out, by definition, you're not going to hit the overall numbers. You're just changing the nature of the cohort. We're putting one person into France and taking one person from France. But they can't even do that. So a wholly unambitious scheme, which, surprise, surprise, has yielded a pitiful result. But even if it was working perfectly, would still be yielding a pitiful result. Yes. We need to do something much bigger, much stronger, much clearer, much firmer. And all of this fiddling around on the sides is never going to work, and it's now been proven that it doesn't work.
Indeed, and it's just worth noting the bigger number there as well, Mark, that when this was announced in September, since then, this was meant to be the great deterrent. 10,000 people have crossed the channel, so it's going brilliantly.
No deterrent has happened, has there? And there's one thing that I think we're going to have to keep a beady eye on, Ian, on all of these statistics in the months and years to come, is that net migration might fall. But that's in part because the numbers coming in are being offset by rich, successful, hard-working Brits deciding they've had enough. Well, that might show overall the population going down, but the nature of the population is worsening. So we've got to keep a beady eye on those gross figures, not just the net migration figures, as you rightly suggest.
Indeed, spot on. Great to have you on again, Mark. Good to see you. Keep well, sir. Mark Littlewood, Director of Popular Conservatism, with us on the programme. Thank you to him. Jan in Blackburn, back to the Union Jack, who says... Oh, no, I think I read this to begin with, didn't I? They disappeared on her street by Christmas Eve, and then they're now going up again. She won't comment on how she knows this. Adam says the whole flag thing, removal of a flag was put up by yourself, to remove a flag that was put up by yourself should be illegal. Surely there is something in law about it, as it's technically stealing an item. These people should be ashamed, although I'd imagine a lot of them aren't British. Well, actually, I would imagine kind of the opposite on that last point. I think they're probably all posh British kind of lefties. You know, the kind of group that go on those Queers for Palestine marches, those nut jobs. I think they're that lot. And they're always called Miranda or Tarquin or something. And, you know, their folks have got a house in the Cotswolds and a summer place in the Bahamas. That lot, that's who they are. But I reckon what they do, I think they take the flag down, they probably fold it and then leave it on the wall, because they would have anticipated, we can't be done for theft, but we can be done for taking it. I wonder, I just can't work out why. Whatever you think about putting the flag up, and I don't mind it as long as they're put up properly, because I do like neatness in my flag. I'm a little bit OCD on that. I want a clean one, nicely pressed, by the way, on a proper flagpole, not any old, you know, not your garage roof or a manky lamppost. I want decent place to put it so that it can stand with proper pride. Otherwise, you kind of dilute the whole reason for it. There's no use saying that we are proud to be British and we're putting flags up. If they look all manky and wonky and dirty, you've kind of messed up your own point. So make them look good when you stick them up. That's fabulous. But most confusing is why somebody would want to take them down. What sort of illness is that? I mean, the left-wing spectrum proffers much evidence to suggest the woeful, bizarre, inadequate and frankly bonkers nature of left-wingism. But that's in a different part of it. What is that? I need to take a flag down. I saw a flag. It's making me feel what? You're bilious? Are your arms about to fall off? What's happening? When you see a flag, what does it do to you? Lenny is in Ashford. Back to the EU reset. Lenny, what are you thinking? Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Ian.
What have you got for us?
Well, I don't think there's a lot of difference between Blair and Starmer, who are both lapdogs of the EU. And Blair actually, when we were due £8 billion refund, Blair allowed them to keep it. He said, no, we are European, we don't want it. Now, the deals that Starmer has done, some of these trade deals and what he's been doing, if you got into the detail of them, I personally would like to know if Starmer has done as much damage as Blair.
So, well, I mean, Blair had... you're right. I think initially on this, Lenny, you're absolutely bang on. I don't think there's a fag paper between them on their position on the EU.
No.
Blair perhaps made it look a bit more businesslike.
Yeah, well...
Even though they were probably, thinking the same thing.
Well, they're both a pair of snakes, so I look at them as
pair of something.
Snakes, and the devil is always in the detail with the pair of them, so that was it. But I mean, they both just want us to be a colony of the EU.
Well, they are happy and unapologetically happier in that skin of being in a global cartel. I mean, when you start to drill down on it and get them to talk about it, I mean, they don't talk sort of romantically any longer. They're really angry that we're not in it, that the world is going to end.
I know, but we have got a little bit of hope, and that because I'm restricted on what I can do, I take a lot of interest in politics.
Okay.
And what it is, I mean, there's a rebellion going on in the EU where the president, who is unelected, and there is a lot of people are fed up with her lies and corruption. And there is a rebellion at the moment. So the EU, hopefully, could be changing when they get that result.
We will see. Is the EU ever going to change? Well, you talk to EU leaders, Lenny, and they'll just go, yeah, it's a United States of Europe. It's not meant to be, what we see from our perspective is different to the one most of them see, although, of course, there are countries that still agitate. But even places like Hungary are not agitating to leave the EU, which is kind of interesting, or certainly not Italy. Just have sometimes a refocused relationship. Thank you to Lenny in Ashford, 0344 499 1000. Coming up on 10 to 3, loads more still to come. Voice of Doom Day 5 on the way. This is Talk.
Welcome to Down the Local, the show that goes from pub to pub across the country, speaking to the punters about the subjects driving us all nuts at the moment.
Rachel Reeves, Rachel Thieves, Rachel McCounts.
I don't really know Meghan Markle. I know Meghan Markle from Suits, and that's about it.
I don't know about anyone else, and I don't know where this is going. I have 0% beers, and I feel
Raising the flag, I think, is symptomatic of its desperation.
Is public transport good value for money?
No, it isn't.
You really don't like speaking to people.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
10 to 3, lots to get through. Let's do we'll talk to Grace in just a second. Voice of Doom is it day 5 or 4? It's day 5 of the Voice of Doom. This is a mystery voice, but it's political. So you are looking for a politician, dead or alive, left or right, young, old, whatever party, could be any. Just one simple task. Who is this?
This is your chance.
Let's hear that again.
This is your chance.
87222. If you think you know, and if we get a right answer, we'll tell you who it is after the news. Here it is again.
This is your chance.
87222. Grace down in London, this is your chance. Grace, good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon. With regard to flags, I tend to feel, I mean, they mean different things to different people.
Correct.
So I feel they're not necessarily the best way of trying to get a message across. I mean, the Palestinian flag, for example, some people think, well, we're waving this to be social justice warriors, and other people see it and they think, are they really, or are they waving it because they hate Jewish people? So we all end up misunderstanding each other. I mean, with regard to the Raise the Colours campaign, I find things like that about our flag a bit ironic, because there is a cross in the middle of it, because ultimately Jesus died on a cross and then it became St. George's cross, and that should instill in us humility. Jesus died for our sin, not so that we could be proud. But I remember a friend of mine saying, those are going to look really tatty in a few months, and I think that some of them now do, but wouldn't it be great if instead of putting flags up and taking flags down again, we could all do something a bit more constructive? I think that people on the left and right actually probably have more agreement than we might realise particularly about things about our country that we like, but we all end up...
Can you think of I don't want to put you on the spot, Grace, but can you think of an example of that? I know there's always the horseshoe argument that left-wing and right-wing ultimately meet in the middle, but I'm not sure if that's what you were referring to.
No, it's not. No. That, gosh, the most pertinent example of that strikes me is the really severe anti-Semitism that we're seeing on the very, very left and the very, very right. No, I think that with lots of things there are actually areas of agreement, but we end up thinking that we all completely disagree and hate each other. One of the things that seems British to me, this is going to sound stupid, but sometimes on Twitter, one of the things that will be trending is something about people's favourite chocolate bars that they remember from back in the day or something like that, or people of my generation lamenting how the cost of Freddo Frogs has gone up, and it's just kind of trivial, silly things, and we can all just kind of agree to enjoy the sentimentality of things about our culture, not necessarily saying we think that we're better than anyone or that we think that everything about our country is perfect, but it's the sentimental feeling that it's our country that I think we share across most of the political spectrum, and it's just a shame that we can't come together on that.
But isn't the problem that, and it's a good point, and Freddo Frogs is, really worth a whole phone in itself, of course, because they used to be...
Sainsbury's near me, 50p.
I think they were 10p when I was a kid, so obviously I'm a bit older than you, so...
I bought them for 10p on the way home from school, and now they're 50p. It's mad.
I thought they were more than 50p. I thought they were like...
Probably depends on which
£25 a frog. Whatever the heck they are. I was going to make a more serious point, though, on patriotism. And I think it is rather interesting, and the left-wing, right-wing thing. You mentioned Twitter, and of course in many places, I constantly say this, almost every show this comes up at some point, which is, can be your best friend for a bit of information, breaking news that you won't necessarily see anywhere else, not because everywhere else is too lazy, but because, as it turns out, social media is the right way to get it across and amplify it. Protests in Iran, for example, we only got to hear about that really via social media to begin with, and we've had that with Egypt in the past and other areas too. But of course, what you see on Twitter, when you talk about commonality, you see the worst kind of left-wingism and the worst kind of right-wingism, right? You don't very often, once those arguments get amplified, they're not talking about chocolate frogs and favourite chocolate bars. They're talking in extremes from the left or the right.
Definitely a thing about extremes, yes, and that gets more clicks, and so it spreads further. Although I don't see many people on the very left on Twitter anymore. They've mostly gone over to Blue Sky. But I think that one of the issues that we really have in our society is we can feel good by being angry with the people who we think are wrong, and that's not very constructive. And again, to mention Jesus, because I bang on about this all the time, I apologise, but he told us to love our enemies, and instead what we do now is we think, oh, well, I'm virtuous if I'm just shouting at those people over there. And I completely get that, because there are a lot of things to shout about, but it's not very constructive in the end. And like I say, I think we've actually got more points of agreement than we necessarily realise.
Yeah, well, that's good to hear. I mean, I love that optimism. It'd be interesting to explore those a little more. Listen, Grace, thank you very much indeed for that. I want to get a word in from Mark in Lincolnshire on the issue of flags. What are you thinking, Mark? Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Ian. The flag thing, it's always been an interesting one when you look at it, when you step back and look at it from the outside as you best you can. Obviously, I have no issue with the flag thing. I think if you're on the other side of this debate, in other words, you're on the left, and you're getting so riled up, so annoyed with, somebody putting the flag up of the country they're living in, that you have to lose your marbles over it, that you have to go and rip it down, that you have to basically accuse everybody of the worst things in the possible world for putting up that flag of the country they live in, then perhaps you're the extremist.
Yeah.
That's my argument here, because the way I see the left today, over from when I was, first, coming out of school and learning about politics, it's completely different, because I pretty much see the left now, from Labour, Lib Dem, all the way down to the Green Party, all the rest of them, as they're all being at various degrees of extremists, because the rhetoric that they come out with persistently about anybody they disagree with, that's particularly, you know, a footstep to the right of where they stand politically is a Nazi, is a fascist.
But do you know what's weird about that, Mark? I keep thinking about this a lot, is that before Reform came along, this is what they used to say about the Tories.
Yeah.
And then, of course, the Tories now look like a very kind of moderate party. And so now all the anger is going to Reform. But before that, it was always the Tories, you know, these extreme right-wingers, and anything Boris did or Cameron did was an act of sheer evilness because they were dirty, filthy right-wingers. Really bizarre stuff. Mark, thank you very much indeed. I only finished there because the news is upon us. We will continue, of course, to take your comments on this. Are we ashamed to be patriotic these days? This is reference this curious group that have mobilised themselves to go out there and take down flags. Flags that have been put up by people who thought, hang on a sec, I want to reclaim a bit of identity in this country. I don't see any Union flags around anymore. I'll wallop one up in my town square or in the local high street or in my own road, wherever. There's now another group taking them down. So what the heck is going on? 0344 499 1000. We'll take calls on that. The cost of vets bills has completely fired people up. And, of course, the voice of doom. Who is this?
This is your chance.
If you think you know, 87222. Hopefully we get an answer, and we'll tell you on the other side of the news at 3.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
It is indeed Talk. 0344 499 1000. Loads going on at this end. We are, of course, continuing to take your calls on flags. Not about putting flags up. How often do we debate about putting flags? Should people be allowed to put flags up wherever they like, on their house, on the garage roof, at the end of their road, in their school, wherever? And now we're talking about a group of people who come together to take flags down because they got the hump with people who put flags up. What a weird world we live in. Who goes out of their way to mobilise a group of people to actively take flags down? What is wrong with you people? More comments on that. Also this afternoon, The Times has uncovered that dodgy operation by criminals within the UK who are falsely granting migrants the right to work in the country through fake jobs and visa sponsorships. We were talking about that with Mark Littlewood in the last section. Comments on that too. And how much would you pay for your pet as vets bills continue to rise? People are having to take out loans for their furry friends, and they cost an absolute flipping fortune. What is going on in that respect? We know that they do inflate the bills, try to sell you extra potions and nutritions and God knows what else, because these vets are often, you know, they're not quite the little one-man band you think. Some of them are owned by huge, big private equity companies, and of course they want a return on their buck. Details to come and continue. Our lines open 0344 499 1000. Message 87222. We'll do the voice of doom in just a bit as well. This one from Graham, who says, I believe Keir Starmer's aim is to take as close as he dare to the EU in this Parliament. Then, come the election, the Labour Party will extol the virtues of our closeness to the EU, and their manifesto will propose that we would be even better off if we fully rejoined. I think that's a really good point, and I could absolutely see that happening, because come the election, the Labour Party are going to be, based on everything we're seeing, okay, there could be a miracle, who knows, and suddenly we all get rich and go, that Keira's all right. Spoiler alert, ain't going to happen. So they're going to be out of options. They're going to be slightly scuffed. What can we do? How can we mark ourselves out? On the left, they've got the Green Party doing their sort of green malarkey in the background. Corbyn's party, that won't do very much, but it's still a voice they could do without. And, of course, they're up against Reform UK and the Tories as a collective. That would be a hurdle. However, if they went as seismic as saying we will rejoin the EU, I tell you what, if I was advising them, I'd probably tell them to do that, if that's what they wanted. Or as a left-wing, I would get, do you know what? Because you will then hoover up a lot of disgruntled Tories who voted to remember the Tory party actively campaigned to remain in the EU. We forget that. Cameron called the referendum, but they campaigned to remain. They were a remaining party. That's what they wanted. So, yeah, I think that's entirely possible from Graham in Milton Keynes. Let's look at another area of life that seems to be dominating. Labour's botched business rates U-turn, branded too little too late after warnings of a high street meltdown. What is going on? Let's speak with Alan Simpson, Chief Executive of UK Hospitality. Good afternoon to you, Alan. Nice to have you with us. I mean, this phrase, too little too late, seems to be doing the rounds. I understand that. And in fact, it hasn't even reached into all the areas it needed to, this assistance.
No, it hasn't. So the news for pubs seems to be reasonably good. It looks like a substantive attempt to redress the damage done by at least part of the last budget, if not the budget before that. But we are still waiting to see what support is available for the rest of the sector. 6 out of 7 jobs in hospitality are outside of pubs. That's well over 3 million people who are still looking to see what support will come for them and their employers. And it's £7 billion of additional costs, which we've seen in the last 2 years on the sector, and at some point that becomes unsustainable, doesn't it?
Well, indeed. I mean, how far can they take it?
Well, that's the question, isn't it? The role of an industry is not to be squeezed until such time as there's only 1 penny left in the till. These are employers who were growing at 6% year on year 2 years ago, the fastest growing sector in the economy. They're the single largest provider of jobs for school leavers, jobs for single parents, routes into management for people who perhaps didn't go to university. And over the last year, we've seen over 100,000 jobs lost in hospitality alone. That's the size of a reasonably large town.
Yeah. Is it likely to change? The position we're in yesterday, announcements from the Treasury, we've got a few quid, we can help here, but maybe not there, and it's not quite as much. And we know that this industry is suffering already. We see daily, sadly, all sorts of areas cease to continue because they simply can't. Is there a kind of shining light on the horizon somewhere, Alan, that is just waiting to happen?
I think it'll be hard yards more than shining light on the horizon. We did see some hope for the rest of the sector yesterday, as well as the direct immediate support for pubs. There was a suggestion that they will do some tinkering with the way the business rates are evaluated between now and the autumn budget. I hope that happens, and we will be happy to help if that's a real thing. But look, national insurance contributions were put up. The VAT rate on hospitality in the UK is twice the size it is almost everywhere else in the world. It is increasingly difficult for this industry to turn a profit of any sort. A bank pays about 35% of its profits in tax. Your local pub will pay between 75 and 80% of theirs. Yeah. At some point, we need to be in a situation where hospitality is paying only its fair share, not everybody else's.
It's not going to be an easy battle. It continues. Alan, thank you for your time, sir. Alan Simpson, Chief Executive of UK Hospitality. Really appreciate that. 0344 499 1000. Back to some other issues of the day. Quinn in Rotherhithe says, I have a very large St George's Cross flying from my front bedroom window. I had it done for the last 8 months. I dare any of these anti-patriotic idiots to come and try and take it down and see how that works out for them. Yeah, don't mess with anyone in Rotherhithe, I say. Thank you, Quinn, for that. On vets bills, they're quite troubling, some of these stories about vets and the costs. Colin in Hampshire says, my daughter paid upwards of £6,000 for treatment for a brain tumour for one of her dogs she was told would survive for many years if the operation went forward. But unfortunately, the dog died only a few weeks after the treatment. My daughter is a veterinary nurse and never regrets paying that amount of money. And I'm tempted to say, did that mean was that a discounted rate as a veterinary nurse? I don't know. But either way, I mean, it's a lot of money. And how far do you go with that? And what do you do if you literally haven't got the money? If you just don't have the cash? It's a tragic situation. You're not insured. I don't know how that works. Do they just kill healthy animals over there at the vets? Simon in Northamptonshire. On patriotism, Simon, what have you got for us? Hi.
Well, just all afternoon, Ian. Always talk about flags.
Yeah.
I have no objection. If people want to put flags up, I think it's quite patriotic. I don't understand how people are losing their mind enough to want to take them down.
Bit weird, isn't it?
Yeah, it is, and that's as far as I go on it. I would not go as far as say, right, I'm now going to counter-mobilise again and get another group to put them back up, because where does it end? If I say I'm losing my mind because they're losing their mind, it's like, really, let's bring this back down to what it is. It's a piece of cloth. I get the impetus behind it. It's patriotic. But as I said to your researcher, I'm like, if we look at something a bit more tongue-in-cheek, we had years ago a man had a disagreement with Tesco about a mattress, drives his Rolls Royce into the store. I'm like, you don't get much more British than that. Like all my foreign friends said, that's such a British thing to do, like drive your Rolls Royce into the store just to complain.
I love that. I didn't know that story. It's become, we've never lived, though, have we, in a more divisive world? People entrenching themselves into, all manner of positions that is it just social media, Simon, or is there something else going on?
I think it's just social media has played a part, but politics now, it's just become so polarised.
Yeah.
And I think the advert of things like the Green Party reform getting bigger, it does help break it down a bit, because it seems to be you're either left or right. If you agree with them, you are, as you say, fascist, racist, whatever they want to say, or loony lefty. They'll come out with all of these insults, because you can say, I can hold both positions at the same time. I can agree with some of what you say, and I can disagree with some of it. But we seem to have lost that centre ground, where it's like, no, you have to have an absolute position.
Even if the evidence is, so you can watch the police shoot somebody in America, and depending on where you sit politically will depend on what view you have of it. Now that's bizarre, isn't it?
Yeah, and if it's like, well, let's see who has been shot first. If it's someone I disagree with, I'm going to champion that and say, well,
correct,
they deserved it. If it's someone I support, no, that's evil. And it's like, this is where we've got this very upside-down world.
Yeah.
And I just think people getting so angry at the people taking the flags down, I agree, they shouldn't be doing that. But I'm like, if you escalate this, it's just, it becomes tit for tat. I'm like, where does it end when you go, and I'm actually angry about something that is so trivial, but I'm angry just because they're angry.
And that's where, yeah, I'm angry because they're angry, so I'll be more angry than they are, and then they can be more angry than me. Curious. Simon, thank you very much indeed for that. I saw this thing, oddly, on social media, which I don't often look at, but once in a while I'll be there. And it was a woman giving a speech. I don't know who she is, but she said this: if there's one lesson you need to take away in 2026, it is the truth doesn't matter anymore and reality isn't real. People will invent narratives and facts to suit desired objectives. And if enough people agree, that becomes the new reality. People who point out that the emperor has no clothes will be crushed. Catherine Mayer of Wikimedia said it best herself: our reverence for the truth is a hindrance to getting things done. Slightly paraphrasing. We're living in a world, she says, where lies don't matter anymore. There are only words and how they affect and how effective they are to reach a desired outcome. People don't care about the truth. They care about achieving their goals. She says we are living in demon times. And it really jumped out at me when I read that. Lies don't matter. It's only word. How effective are those words? I've said this forever on this show. It's not really about what you say, it's about how you make someone feel. So if you say something in a certain tone, with a certain level of either aggression or happiness, whatever, depending on what you're talking about, will depend on sometimes whether people like you or not. Certainly from a radio presenter point of view. Certainly in some quarters, you'd gain an additional audience if you started shouting very loudly and banging the desk and slapping your chest and start going, fracking, yeah, fracking's great. Because it sounds a bit rude, fracking, doesn't it? You definitely, and then similarly, if you did it on the left, you'd gain the same. So it's not about the truth. The lie doesn't matter as long as you made somebody feel good. And if you've made enough people feel good, then you carry on with it. And then that becomes the new reality. That's bizarre. Matthew's in Newport on flags and stuff. What have you got, Matthew? Afternoon.
Well, as I said to your researcher, I'll bite. I'll be the person that says I'd be taking them down. I'd be pushing the person off the ladder if he tried to put one outside my house. It's the rise, in my mind, of nationalism. It's not patriotism. I don't see how putting up something which is, well, the people are putting up, they don't speak for me. I don't want them up on the streets. I think you're looking at a place that's going to say, you know, oh, I'd love to look like 30s Germany with all the flags showing. And don't is it
not actually a bit more nuanced than that, Matthew? Because I don't like, you know, I don't want a flag right outside my house either. I don't mind one in the local park on a nice post that is put up properly and it can fly majestically in the wind. Brilliant, I've got no problem with that. But I wonder whether this is a pushback from a sense that we're living in a country where the government don't have our backs. The government don't have a sense of common sense, what is right, what is wrong, when you are trying to force a certain number of immigrants into an area. It might not be a problem for you, Matthew. For some people, that's a genuine problem. They're not racists, it's a problem.
Well, there's so many things to go there. I mean, this idea of not racist is that phrase, isn't it? You know, not everyone who was racist voted for reform, but every racist, you know, not everyone who voted reform is racist, but everyone who voted reform was. Yeah, and I think what we got to get away from, you're absolutely right. Have it in a park, have it on the civic
other way
building.
around, but yes.
Yeah, I know. Have it in a park, have it in a civic building. I don't want them down the streets. I don't want them there putting up. And it is, I don't care what anyone says. When you say this idea of common sense, it's a great phrase. It's been proven that there isn't such thing.
What is common sense?
Yeah, but you know that. It's proven. I mean,
but when you're living in a world that can have, for example, these pro-Palestine, anti-Israel protests taking place, thousands of people every week with banners and God knows what written on them, pretty distasteful stuff, and nothing really happens to them. But at the same time, you know, a couple of parents get a knock on the door from the police, taken down to the police station, arrested because they said something on a WhatsApp group. It's a build-up of that.
Yep.
I said, now, the two-tier policing thing, I've never bought into that idea that it's two-tier policing. I think something else is going on, but it's not a sort of... And this also predates Keir Starmer. They say, oh, it's Starmer's henchmen going in, which is a silly phrase. It's not. It was happening under the Tories. When you've got that happening, when you've got £6 million a day of people's money being spent on migrant hotels, it's not unreasonable. In fact, some would say it should be compulsory, Matthew, to ask the question, what the hell is going on?
Yeah, but didn't you just say a minute ago it's nuanced? And so what you're doing now is just a whataboutism. What about this? What about that?
That's not whataboutery. That's the reasons. They are the reasons.
No, there are reasons, and I think, like in everything in this country, we don't have a conversation which brings in the nuance. We have a conversation in which people are saying, "I'm angry," and people in charge don't listen, and that is an error. I mean, they did it over Brexit. They were complacent over Brexit, and the thing is, you've seen it in the States. You get the rise of the nationalism, you get the rise of an aggressive few, and it will, lefties, sometimes softies. I mean, that chap who said these people wouldn't fight. Not only would I fight if anyone's coming here, I've been involved in the defence industry for 40 years, and I've made things that soldier carries. And he can't fight without it. And he's going to call me a lefty. Now, the thing is, we've got to get a balanced conversation over this where it isn't all about, these idiots. But it doesn't make good radio, does it? I mean, you want someone to get up there and get all angry and shouty. All I'm saying is, let's be sensible. Let's save it for events.
Well, we should be sensible, and people take
proud of the flag when it needs to be proud of it.
People take worst-case scenarios and they inflate them. I understand that. They exaggerate. This happens on the left and the right, and this is the problem that we've kind of got with this sort of division. They will certainly, when you look at some of the big social media accounts, Matthew, that talk about this stuff, you'll find, some of the stuff that's posted, it's not quite true. It's a bit true, but just not fully true. So you've got to have the ability to, at the very least, exaggerate on a bad day, completely invent. And that's where we're at. Matthew, thank you, in Newport. I get what he's saying, but to deny completely that there isn't an issue. The Batley school teacher, great example. And this is just on one aspect of what's gone wrong. The Batley school teacher, of course, who was the man that was hounded out because he showed some cartoons of the Prophet Muhammad in a classroom, and parents suggested this guy should be in jail, should never teach again. All of those parents should have been water cannoned out of their own homes for even turning up, not wanted, get the hell out the area, go and send your kid to another school then, or find something, teach them from home. But we didn't do that. In fact, we did nothing. The local MP said, Kim Ledbetter said nothing at all. Disgraceful. And then the marches, the Palestine marches, the football match, where you got these sort of hardliners from the local community going, this is our territory. Essentially saying we don't want any Jews around here. That stuff. I think there's a body of evidence there to say that isn't hyperbole. No one's making it up. This stuff is going on, and we're fed up with it. And then you put that against social media. There are some things on social media you can do, put and write, that will get you put in a pair of handcuffs, and on occasions, rightly so. However, there's many more that shouldn't ever get you not only not put in a pair of handcuffs, nobody should be knocking at your door for your opinion. But that hasn't happened either. So these are very real issues. And I think the flag thing, throw in the hotels, the cost of them alone, social assimilation, cultural issues, the clash, the areas where criminality has had, put all of that in. And you think, yeah, I can see why somebody might want to put a flag up and go, hello, this is our country. It doesn't make you a fascist, nut job, right-winger or anything. 0344 499 1000. Matt will be with you shortly. Should we do the Voice of Doom now? Voice of Doom, it was day 5. The mystery voice. Has anybody got it correct? Here's the voice.
This is your chance.
Who is that? These are some of the wrong answers. Steve Reed, Alan Campbell, Malcolm Rifkin, Peter Kyle, Tim Farron, Norman Lamont, John Gummer, Ian Duncan Smith, all incorrect. Nobody got it right. It's back tomorrow for day 6. Stand by for that. Just gone 20 past 3. This is Talk.
Welcome to Down the Local, the show that goes from pub to pub across the country, speaking to the punters about the subjects driving us all nuts at the moment.
That's Rachel Reeves, Rachel Thieves, Rachel McCown.
I don't really know Meghan Markle. I know Meghan Markle's from Seats. That's about it.
I don't know about anyone else, and I don't know where this is going. I have 0% beard, and I feel
Raising the flag, I think, is symptomatic of this desperation.
Is public transport good value for money?
No, it isn't.
You really don't like speaking to people.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
This is Talk 0344 499 1000. Sonny in Reading says, on the patriotic thing, we have at least 2 generations who've been brainwashed in schools and universities by the left wing to hate British culture and British history. So now you are seeing the result of all of that. There is the other thing that I've talked about a little bit, of the people that don't talk about either of it, left wing or right wing. In fact, if anything, they're probably more liberal and down the middle. And I've said this a lot, that we on this show, this station, you as an audience, talk a lot about the issues that are going wrong with this country, with the world, what we think is wrong with politics. Not everybody is completely from the same hymn sheet, but there is a body of belief that, you know, we're up the what's it without a thingy. And we engage in it. We read about it, we debate it, we listen to it, we discuss it with mates on the radio, on the telly, whatever. Most people don't do that. And that's the thing. Are we a kind of small minority? You know, we think there's this kind of momentum around change. And I mentioned this a few weeks ago when I was out there with a group of mates, was it just after or just before? It was just before Christmas, I think. Chatting away, and to one neighbour who I'd never actually met, who was really nice, but she was not across any of this. It's like, you know, what? No. She was talking about those poor people who crossed the channel and the terrible things that are going on, but she wasn't really a lefty. She was just like, didn't have these views. Her world was taken up by other issues, I guess. Never did find out what they were. Matt's in Cheshire. Matt, what have you got for us? Hi.
Hi, good afternoon, Ian.
Afternoon.
I spoke to you about 3 months ago, and I said if I were the security services, I would seize the devices of the Keir Starmer and the cabinet of this government.
Right.
And it got me thinking earlier today when the story came out about Starmer being involved with trying to get British soldiers sort of charged. And
yes, back in the 2000s when he was a lawyer.
Doing it pro bono. It made me think, at what point would a democracy step in and do something if we did have a traitor in charge of the country? And I thought of an example. Say in the future Britain ends up with 10 million Muslims and they all vote for an imam that then decides he's going to execute all the Christians in Britain. Would the British establishment step in before that, or would they wait till they started executing them? So at what point...
Well, how would he be allowed to... I mean, if he was executing people, he'd go to jail, obviously, for executing people.
If he was the Prime Minister...
Oh, I see. So you right,
if he
OK.
got voted in by... In the future, there were 10 million Muslims that all managed to vote for the same person.
Right.
And he started to pass policies
that
the civil service, who already hate Britain anyway, and hate everybody on the right, and hate the British people, what would the British establishment do? And would anybody do anything?
Well, I'd like to think it wouldn't be... I mean, obviously, what you're talking about is hypothetical, but I think... Of
course.
I don't imagine anybody could get to that. So I think power is slightly limited in what you'd be able to do. And despite the sort of image we have of the civil service, there's enough in there that have got a bit of muscle that would metaphorically smack you in the chops and tell you to go home. I don't mean literally go home, in that sense.
They haven't got the guts to stop people crossing the channel, Ian. They haven't got the manpower to stop criminality on the streets. They haven't got the
But is that the civil service? Is it the government? Is it the individual institutions? Or is it a mad cocktail of all of that?
It's the poison of leftism throughout everything you just mentioned and more, which basically ties itself in with Islamism in this current world. So what I said is not beyond the realms of possibility, because these useful idiots will aid those people in maybe getting to that stage.
Well, there is, and all of these conversations, I've thought about this a lot over the last couple of days, Matt. These are uncomfortable conversations, and whenever you have them, somebody, certainly on the left, goes, you're talking about that, are you? You know, you're spreading lies or whatever. And that is the very simple fact that if a religion, in this case Islam, if the people of that faith in this country are producing children at twice the rate of the, for argument's sake, indigenous population, then in 50 years' time you will change the fabric of this country. That is a fact, right? That's just a fact. There's no mischief there. There's no politics. It's just a fact. It's just a fact.
It's an absolute fact. And what I'm doing is just considering...
Yeah, no, and I was just extending your argument. So, therefore, the next point is, what are the implications of that? Rory Stewart, you remember him, that old sponge of a Tory... he was asked, is there a problem in this area or something to that effect? And he just went, no. And I thought, right, you went to Oxbridge and you just go, no, there isn't. Now... is it wrong to at least ask for a conversation about cultural assimilation, demographics, increase of certain groups, and what that means going forward? Is that seriously offensive to explore? Of course it's not. But nobody has that conversation because they think it sounds like you're going, too many Muslims here, mate. And of course you're not. You're asking a very reasoned question. Matt, I've got to run. Thank you. 0344 499 1000. The minute you raise that, if I sat in my local pub tonight and made that point about reproduction and procreation of different ethnic groups, what does it mean? Somebody would go, hello, what's he mean over there? Why is he asking that? What's he all about then? Genuine question, really interesting question. Where does it go? And why would Rory Stewart say that's not a problem? Does that mean... and maybe that is a kind of sort of left-wing thing. Well, it doesn't matter if this country suddenly became overtaken by, in terms of amounts of people, and therefore, by definition, every profession, overtaken by a different faith, be it Islam, Sikhism, whatever it happened to be. There is a school of thought that is, well, so what? That's just what happens. This is the point we're at in the evolution of the planet. People move around. It happens, right? That would be the answer that the left would probably give. I don't care. 0344 499 1000. Couple of things still to come. We'll talk vets. And, of course, the doomsday. Do you know what the doomsday clock is? Do you know about the doomsday clock? If you don't, listen up. It's coming next on Talk.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
It is Talk 0344 499 1000. More comment from you on the way. So veterinary surgeons and the vets and the cost of sorting out your dog, your cat, your little rabbit. We know that they are expensive, more expensive it seems than getting human care. But what's going on here? Let's talk to Dr. Julia Muse, veterinary surgeon, owner of the independent veterinary practice Muse Vets. See what you did there, Julia. Nice to have you with us. And it is, you know, it's not cheap running any kind of medical setup, whether it is for animals or humans. You know, a lot of equipment, a lot of knowledge, of course. You have to be incredibly qualified. So it's not cheap. What has changed over the years? Why does this narrative keep coming up that, good Lord, it costs an arm and a leg, no pun, in order just to get my dog fixed?
Yeah, no, I think obviously it's always worth starting any conversation about why vets bills are as high as they are with a little note about the NHS. You comment that it feels as if vets bills are higher than it might be for getting human medicine or whatever.
Yep.
But the reality of that is, in fact, you're just reflecting the common ignorance about the real cost of providing medical care to human beings. And certainly when I have American customers who are living in the UK with pets come to us, they have no hesitation, no comment at all about our bills, because we are in fact significantly cheaper than doctors, nurses and so on. It's a fallacy that we are expensive in that context.
Gotcha.
I think that when you ask me about why have the vets fees gone up over the years, yes, there is inflation. Also, the profession has advanced dramatically in the decades that I've been a member of the profession. It's immense. I'm sitting here in a simple consulting room and noticing that my fridge is a digital fridge. We have a requirement from our Royal College of Veterinary Surgeons that all medications are stored at fixed temperatures, and we have to be able to show computerized monitoring of the fridge temperature. I mean, back in the day, we'd have just bought the cheapest fridge we could find and whack our vaccines in there. And that's just a tiny example of the type of advances. We're talking ultrasound machines, we're talking endoscopy, we're talking in-house laboratories. And don't forget as well that as a private medical provider, we are in fact able to provide care for animals at a much quicker than you're going to get it even with private medicine probably. So most pets, if they're unwell today, I will see them today, and if you need a blood test, I'll take that blood test today, and I might well give the results within an hour or two.
Sure.
And just it's very rare to get that level of service, except of course in A&E, and the NHS is amazing that it can do that. But a blood test taken by your GP will take significantly longer than that to be reported.
I've never understood, Julia, and I don't say this to be cheeky or clever, why you guys can't also be doctors as well as vets. I mean, surely, I mean, the correlation is massive. That Venn diagram is bulging in the middle, right? I mean, if I said to you, "Oh, my heart hurts," what's that little muscle called? You'd know the answer to that, right?
Well, I did my first 2 years of training with the medics at Cambridge.
Well, there you go. You see,
and then it's only the latter 4 years that we diverged. But obviously, the reality is about legislation.
Of course, you would be. You'd be.
And I couldn't hold it all in my brain. It's enough to manage cats, dogs, and rabbits.
I get that, but you would be better in a pub quiz on human anatomy than most people, I think would be fair to say. I was just going to add, Julia, that do you think one of the issues around this issue of this area of pricing and what's happening? I read a report the other week. I'm sure you saw it about some of the. I mean, you're an independent veterinary practice. Of course, there are some huge conglomerates, and behind them are pretty big. You know, those big American equity companies. It looks like something sort of, you know, I'm sure they are friendly and qualified vets working in there, not disputing that.
Sure.
But of course, those guys that run it are saying, you know, you need to up the profits. And there is some suggestion that often perhaps certain treatments are being offered or encouraged when maybe the dog or the cat doesn't necessarily need it. What are you hearing on the veterinary street on that one?
Well, it's an interesting thing. It was a government proposal many years ago now that it was a bad thing that only veterinary surgeons could own veterinary clinics. And they decided to demonopolise the profession and let anybody own a veterinary clinic. And of course, we have now this situation where we've got corporates owning veterinary practices is a direct outcome of that. but an unforeseen one, to be fair. And I think it is very confusing for veterinary surgeons and veterinary nurses who we all come into the profession with only one intention, and that is to be of use to sick animals and to keep them fit and safe throughout their lives. And it is very confusing to have a responsibility beyond that we have to the pet owner and to the pet itself. We care for the pet's well-being and welfare. And then to add into that equation the responsibility to create profit for shareholders. And that is a very confusing and unpleasant situation, I think, to find oneself.
Indeed. Final point, I think lots of people wonder this about vets. Dogs and cats, I would imagine they're the most common animals you see. How does that divvy up? Percentage? What does the pie chart look like between...
It's about 60% dogs, 40% cats.
OK. What is the dog that is more likely to nip your finger? And I'm sure you've had a few nips in your time.
Perhaps the Chihuahua?
Yeah, they often say it's the little smaller ones. But when somebody brings one of those big old Rottweilers in, you must think, oh my goodness. I mean, I'm sure there's protocol and ways of dealing with that, but I mean, it's it's quite a dangerous job as well.
It really is. I mean, we're not just having a nice chat with a pet owner and a nice snuggle. Some of the time we are dodging very seriously intended teeth, and with cats' claws as well. Now, I once got attacked by a cat, and I had all four of its claws from all four paws in my hand.
Yeah.
I had it by the scruff, so I had its teeth under control. But it's a dangerous role and a difficult role we perform.
Indeed. And what about, just a final point? Never really thought about this. What about the increase in people owning exotic pets? I mean, does that ever come your way? Does somebody bring a snake in, or does that go to some zoological kind of setup?
But back in the day, when I first was working in Sussex and just newly qualified, we had a pet shop opposite. Yeah. And for 7 years, I was that pet shop's vet, and they sold a lot of reptiles, and I upskilled to be of use to them. But nowadays, it's another representation of how the profession changes. We are tending to specialise, and it would be unusual now for a GP like myself to claim that I knew enough about a reptile that it would be safe in my hands, and so we would tend to defer that to a zoo vet.
Call the zoo. That's the answer, isn't it? Listen, Julia, lovely to have you on. Let's talk again. That's Dr. Julia Muse, veterinary surgeon and owner of the independent veterinary practice Muse Vets. Interesting stuff. So she says it's a bit of an urban myth that it's more expensive to go to the vets than if you were having the same equivalent treatment to a human. I'm sure there's some things. I'm pretty sure your scan costs more for your dog's leg than it does for your human leg. Dave's in Doncaster. Back to vets fees, Dave. What are you thinking? Good afternoon.
Now then, yes, you had a very good point there. Don't forget we pay the national insurance for our fees as well. We don't pay it for any of our animals unless you take insurance out.
Yeah.
We've recently took insurance out for our 2 cats, but the story I rang up about was, it's not too far away from your hometown, actually. It's Gainsborough.
OK.
There's a vet's there that our 2-year-old cat got knocked down in the street and it broke a back leg. And it was going to cost us £6 grand to fix it.
Wow.
We took it down to the vets. We were like, don't know if we can afford this. And the vet turned round and says, well, you're just going to have to put it down then.
Wow. You don't want to hear that, do you? I mean, nobody wants to hear that, but you don't expect it. You think there must be some midway answer to this.
No, our midway answer was to phone round all the cat charities. We managed to get £4 grand together, and the cat charities put the rest towards it. So we did actually save the cat, and the cat lived until it was about 16 years old, and it was fine.
Did the vet offer some kind of payment plan? Could you have done it? I mean, wow.
No, the vets. It used to be owned by a different person, and the vets, we used to go in, we used to take the animal in, and then we used to go settle up after, sort of like a couple of days after we'd get the bill. Now, the same vets today do not let you leave that vet unless you've paid. And it's to the point where a friend took his dog in, and he was under the same situation as me. We pay after, I'll send my mum in to pay. Sure. And he was like, no, you'll pay now. And they made him call his mum and pay over the phone.
I was running it, Tony Soprano. What's going on over there?
Well, yeah. Obviously, we've changed vets now. We've moved vets. We've moved to a great one that's in Market Raise, and I'll not say any names or anything.
Yeah, OK.
We've insured the 2 cats. The 2 cats are It started off at 10 quid a month. We've had a claim on it, which was about 500 quid already for like bladder stones for one of the cats. Now that cat is on special food 2 years later, the insurance is still buying it for us.
Yeah.
And we are still paying the same price for our cat insurance, which is a tenner a month.
I'm not even sure I've got dog insurance for my dog.
Take it.
Yeah.
Take it, because if something happens, diabetes, anything like that comes along, you're treating the animal for the rest of its life. So it's always best to get insurance, I'd say. It's like
no, it is. And the last dog did have insurance until she sadly died. But I'm trying to think if we've got. I don't know if we have. I'm going to check when I get home. Dave, thank you very much indeed for that. It's devastating, though, isn't it? Dave in Doncaster. He's not devastating. The story of the vet going, sorry, mate, you had to put the thing down. I got me a syringe at the ready. 0344 499 1000, 3:45. This is Talk.
I had drunk the Kool-Aid. I believed that doing more business with China was going to be good for both of our countries. As I got more senior in the government, I saw what a massive security threat China was. It was particularly under the Boris government. We were forced by the Americans, by the then first Trump administration, to rip out the Huawei components. And it's clear that China is trying to infiltrate our system. You know, we've had spies in Parliament. We've now had this spying scandal in Number 10.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
This is Talk. Just saw this story over the last couple of days. January the 27th, yesterday, the doomsday clock moved 85 seconds to midnight. The closest it's ever been, closer than any moment in history. The scientists who set the clock, the bulletin of the atomic scientists, issued a stark warning. The world is running out of time. My goodness, should I build a bunker? What do I do? Do I start praying, howling at the moon, or just go on holiday? Let's speak with Alexandra Bell, CEO of the Bulletin of Atomic Scientists. Alexandra, good Do you know what? Of all the years, I always see this kind of headline every now and then, oh, the doomsday clock's doing this, it's doing that. I've never once stopped, and I'm a reasonably bright chap, to go, what is the doomsday clock? What is it? I know what doomsday is, but what's the doomsday clock? Is it real? What's the significance of it? What does it mean?
So the doomsday clock is a symbol, a metaphor for the amount of danger that humanity is in from human-caused existential risks. It was created back in 1947 as a visual representation of that danger. And over the years, we've monitored nuclear risks and now risks from climate change and disruptive technologies, including AI, including potential biological risks. And we put out the number to
Right.
make people aware of the threats, but also make it clear that there is still time left. You don't have to build a bunker yet. We are fully capable of fixing these problems. What we're seeing is a lack of global leadership to actually address those threats.
Right. Now, the meetings to decide on the amount of time must be quite something. I mean, I wouldn't enter one of those meetings without several bottles of wine, to be honest, but I would imagine, you know, it does take some debate to arrive at in this case, the figure of 85 seconds.
Yeah, absolutely. We meet throughout the year to discuss the trends that we're seeing, the actions or lack thereof being taken by world leaders. And in November, we spend about 2 days discussing biological threats, climate change threats, nuclear threats, threats from AI and other disruptive technologies. So we're bringing all those scientists and experts together to talk about the risk and make the assessment and make it with the idea in mind that we don't just want to scare people. We want to make sure that people understand that there are things that we can do. And then, yes, we do go have some wine after.
And does it always work in sort of seconds? I mean, it's never days or hours, days or weeks, is that right? Or has it been in the past?
The furthest the clock has ever been from midnight is 17 minutes, and that was at the end of the Cold War, where the United States and Russia were getting rid of the ash and trash of the Cold War, were working to reduce nuclear arsenals between them. Next week, the last nuclear arms control agreement between the United States and Russia will expire, and President Putin and President Trump don't seem to be doing anything about it. They are frittering away 50 years worth of effort, blood, sweat, and tears that went in to making sure that we were reducing nuclear threats between the two largest nuclear armed states.
Well, so it was 17 minutes ago when the wall came tumbling, 17 minutes to midnight when the wall came tumbling down, as it were. One would have thought, not unreasonably, back then, that, the direction of travel, surely, is the 21st century. We're a civilised people. We've been through all that war nonsense. Don't want another one of those. Come back in 20, 30 years, then it's going to be like 3 hours to midnight. But it's gone the other way. Have we learnt nothing?
It seems that we're forgetting the lessons that we learned at the end of the Cold War, having gone through 2 worldwide conflagrations, death on an unimaginable scale, and we put into place cooperative structures, places for dialogue, places for cooperative effort. We're not always going to agree, but we can always keep working the problem. And today what we're seeing is no one is talking. People are increasingly around the world seeing their leaders take autocratic, nationalistic approaches to these global problems that have no respect for sovereign borders. Climate change, nuclear war, they affect everyone. And the leaders that we see around the world are just in dereliction of their duty to protect their citizens, to protect this planet.
If you get to midnight on the clock, now, of course, you're reflecting a set of facts and factors on a global geopolitical sort of landscape, as it were. Obviously, that doesn't mean that the world is literally going to end at that point, but we're in a perilous place. What if it gets worse the following year? What does your clock do then? Does it go? Is it after midnight? Is that how that would work? I'm sure that's been discussed.
So, as you might imagine, scientists and academics can endlessly discuss what exactly midnight means. But to me, midnight means there's nothing left to do. So we will keep working the problem until there's no time left. So to me, midnight is the place we never want to get. And again, we are capable of solving these problems. They are human-caused problems. They can be solved by humans, but we need public pressure on policymakers. We need scientists empowered to come up with the tools and technologies and solutions that we need to manage these problems. It's going to take cooperation, it's going to take persistence and patience. That's a little bit lacking in our current political environment.
Yeah, I do. I have that thought often, actually, that I don't want to sound like some kind of mad left-wing hippie here, but once in a while it does cross my mind that, hang on, this is just a bunch of blokes in a room that could solve all of this. It's not like, you know, it doesn't require any money. Oddly, it just requires sort of just the power of thought or the right decisions. You haven't got to invent something. You've just got to sit there and go, do you know what, those bombs I was going to drop, I'm not going to drop them anymore. It's really that, and it is, I don't want to make a sexist point here, but it is mostly blokes.
Well, certainly when it comes to nuclear weapons, every nuclear armed state is run by a man, and increasingly those states have authoritarian tendencies. That's something to be concerned about. A lot of people thought we finished the nuclear threat at the end of the Cold War and thought, glad we're done with that. Unfortunately, it's still here. It's worse in many ways. But again, the solution is simply getting people together, working the problem, finding the scientific methods necessary to make sure that if we move forward with nuclear reductions, that those are verifiable, that they're irreversible. We're capable of all that. It's really maddening to see world leaders assuming these problems will go away just by, you know, ignoring them. If they're ignored, they will metastasize. They are metastasizing.
Yeah. Indeed. Alexandra, thank you. We may speak in a year, and hopefully we have different news. Alexandra Bell is the CEO of the Bulletin of the Atomic Scientists. Thank you to her. Over to you. Crunching gear change, vets fees. Stephen's over here. Stephen, good afternoon to you. I understand you really did hit not the jackpot in a good way, but in the invoicing way.
Well, I did in the invoicing way, but I also hit the jackpot as far as the health of my dog was concerned. I mean, my dog suffered from a very rare form of cancer, which is bladder cancer. They gave him about 6 months to live. That was with a local vet. I took him down to the south, to Dublin. I'm not advertising anyone's services, but it was a UCD, and they've got a specialist veterinary school there. The heads of most of the departments are professors.
Okay.
The average vet there isn't your average vet. They're actually something called diplomats, which is the highest qualification that you can get as a vet.
Is that right? Didn't know this. Okay.
Yeah. Well, there's no diplomats operating in Northern Ireland. The closest there's one operating out of Scotland. So it's really quite a commendable qualification to have. Well, anyway, be that as it may, as I said, my dog had this bladder cancer, and they gave him 6 months to live. He was treated in Dublin. He actually lived for 3 years, which was quite remarkable. They thought it was quite remarkable.
Yeah.
Well, at the end of it all, he died, and at the end of it all, I didn't get one complete bill at the very end. I mean, I was paying as I went along.
Sure.
By the end of it, I paid. Wait for it. I paid the guts of €30,000.
Wow. So about 25 grand or something.
About 25 grand, but you know, but to put it in context, it was over 3 years. It's a lot of money. I'm not a wealthy person. I mean, it meant quite a lot to me to be paying it on a regular basis. But when I see that in terms,
where did you go, Stephen? Oh, sorry, you disappeared for a second.
No,
Sorry.
I'm still here. No, when I was, but when I see it in terms of that people can go out and buy brand new cars.
Yeah.
By the time they drive them off the forecourt, they might be worth £6,000-8,000 less than what they paid for the car.
So you kind of made it work in your head, and I do understand that. And as you say, if it was one whacking bill of like, we'll fix your dog give us 25,000 quid, then that would be a different situation. But you clearly don't regret it, though, Stephen, because you had an extra 3 years with your lovely dog.
You know, I mean, if history repeated itself, I would do the same thing again. I wouldn't think twice about it. Because, I mean, it all depends. I mean, a lot of people don't attach... A lot of people have pets, but they don't really attach that much importance to them. In as much as, okay, well, when they die, and if they get run over, they get run over.
Yeah.
Then you get people that are really dedicated to them and see them as members of their family. So when you see it in terms of that, it kind of takes on a different slant.
Sure. I mean, we definitely see our dog as a member of the family. There's no doubt about it. She's a weird member of the family, don't get me wrong, but I wouldn't want to be without her. Great call, Stephen. Thank you very much indeed for that. Christine says the vet insurance will also cover public liability in case your pet causes an accident or injures someone else. Sean says you're not better off with dog insurance when the premium is $650 a month. $650 a month?